What is happening out there, Roto Scouts baseball fans? Happy Friday. We made it. End of the week. Stephen Leibowitz points it out right away. Figures set the start time for 4:20 on a Friday. Thought you guys might enjoy that. Felt like the right move for our crowd. I sent that out on Twitter saying I thought it would have a little bit of appeal for this group. Got to do a quick little bit of updating in the spreadsheet here while we do the intro here, gang. So bear with me for a couple minutes. Screwed up and just kind of left all day to put that Tigers Cleveland game into the spreadsheet here, and completely forgot that it would eventually not be available on FanDuel from the old days Slate or anything. So now I just have to figure out how to get that on the board here so that we can show that game. I think what I'm going to do is just real quick grab the DraftKings name pool. Should be the easiest way for me to do it. So hang tight for a second. This will only take a minute. Name game. All right, I think that'll work. Bear with me. I know this is fun to start the show. Appreciate everybody joining us. Appreciate the regulars that I've already seen here in the chat already today. Welcome. The name of the show is the MLB DFS Lineup Card. The site is rotoscouts.com. Make sure you're following the Twitter handle at rotoscouts. Make sure you're following along with what we do via subscribing here on YouTube so that you get all the updates when we go live on these shows. A little bit of chaotic starting time all over the place sometimes, so helps to know when that's actually going to happen. Oh, of course, it has the goddamn date in it. It's so annoying. Not the best way to start the show out here. I know. I get it. I'm so bad at this. Boy. I'm a little frazzled. It's been a long, quick day. I got an early start on everything, and then just like everything just kind of fell by the wayside, and like my time advantage just kind of disappeared through the day. That's why I needed the late start on the show. That's why we're still a little bit behind here. We're getting there though. Okay, need the teams. This is also that I can show a game that is so not all that relevant to anything outside of maybe some Detroit hitting on that DK slate. So annoying. I completely forgot to move it over. I almost forgot to cover it entirely. I did leave it out of the models by accident. But I put a note up. All right. If that... No, come on. Hang in there, gang. I hope you guys are talking to yourselves. I got my face in the spreadsheet here. 1 second while I get this fixed. Oh, what the hell? I don't know why that's not working. Let me see what's going on in the chat. Podigen says this is one of those new voice apps. Better Slate than last night. That's for sure. EB's here. Old Terry Headroom. What's up, EB? Lone Wolf's here. No stress. We're all blown out anyways. Yeah, we got a lot to talk through tonight, though. Mama says the audio's choppy again. Is that right? Is the audio choppy? Let me know, gang. Oh, shit. Looks like it is. Audio. Some of these other guys are saying it is, too. It's still, doing that? I don't fucking... A lot of issues today. Audio's perfect now, says Travis. I wonder what that is when we get started. That was it was at the beginning of the show yesterday. I didn't do anything to change it, obviously, because I just noticed that you guys were saying that. All right, if that... I don't know why this formula that I'm putting in to fix the teams didn't work the first time. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Hopefully you know that this is what I've been doing this whole time. All right, that's in there. Now, I don't even care what the run total is. I'm just going to make a run total for this game, guys. I'm going to use that one up there. That looks about right. Since we're only talking about that in kind of an abstract sense anyway, it doesn't really matter what I use for the run total there. And yes. All right. Let me just make sure this is actually in the pool now. So, pitchers. It's Curry, and it's not Matt Manning either. Sorry. Goddamn Joey Wentz. Fun show. Who's your guys' favorite starter on the slate? Spencer Strider's the highest projected starter on the slate, but Pablo Lopez is catching on his heels. A lot of separation in the projection itself, but I really like the spot for Pablo Lopez today. We'll talk about that in just a second. Let me get Joey Wentz, the most relevant pitcher on the slate, loaded up here, because that's what we need to be doing now. You tell I'm just annoyed with myself today. Detroit, Cleveland. This is what I meant to do while I was finishing up the article. All right, we can at least see that game. All of that was just not even to get projections. It was just to be able to see the damn game in the dashboard. Oh, God. All right, and we don't have lineups updated yet, but we'll do that on the fly as we talk about this. So with that, let me say hi to a couple other folks who I'm sure have joined us here. So we've got Poe Dgens here. I know that. Calvin's here. Could be Travis, Larry C. Obi-Wan's here. I see Shannon Lambert in the chat. Larry says it's when I'm loading stuff that it goes choppy. That's weird. Too many tabs open? Possibly. I can close a couple. I don't really have many more open than I normally would. I'll close the optimizer. That one we need. This one we definitely need. Keep me posted on how the sound sounds, guys. Kevin likes the Yanks. There's some value for the Yanks at the very least. Copying content is here again. Probably the only girl gonna win shit. How about that? Bold claims by copying content, who's probably not even playing the slate. All right, guys, let's dive into this one. Weird show so far. Apologies for the clunky start. Not how I like to do things. Let's just get into it. One of those days. One of those days. All right. No, I didn't even do these. Let's just showing some stuff off there. You know, this is so annoying. This is the shit that I'm normally doing in the minutes before we get on the air. I should have just told you guys it would be another 5 minutes instead of coming on and doing all this live, but whatever. This is supposed to be 10. Bazoom. All right, there they go. Time for some rock stars and cannabis for Terry. Well, we'll settle for coffee. Stephen Leewood says we've never had weird shows before. Nuh-uh. Obi-Wan's audio is cutting in and out. Poe Dgens says it's fine. Matt Tomlinson said it's great when I'm done loading. Audio's all over the place. It's so weird. Nothing has changed on this end from how we always do shows. I don't know what it could possibly be. Something with the internet connection, maybe? Who knows? Anyway, let's jump into this one. I'll grab the confirmed lineups as we go here. And we will try and make good time through the actual games as we talk about them. Because we're going to need to. Massive slate, 13 on DK, 12 on FanDuel, as we now know. All right, Yanks with DJ LeMahieu in the lineup at the leadoff spot. I got Ben Rortvedt in there. So, Johnny Brito is going to get beat up by the Red Sox tonight. That's my prediction. That's my projection. That's how this entire thing looks to me. I've watched this guy pitch all season long. Taking the eyeball test out of the equation, 4.76 ERA, a 5.03 xFIP, 18% strikeouts, 8.8% walks, giving him way too much power for all these lefties in Yankee Stadium. This is just not the spot. If you want to play Johnny Brito shares, 5,800, 7,600, Godspeed. Not a spot for me whatsoever. Just danger spot. Big flashing warning sign around these hitters, particularly the top 6 for the Red Sox, top 7, excuse me. I like that a lot. I think that's a really, really prime spot for success. There's a ton of value there. They're really low cost for the Red Sox in Yankee Stadium with all those left-handed hitters. This looks like a killer spot for me. I've got them pretty prioritized. They rank 9th on the stacks board for projected fantasy points. They're 9th on the FanDuel value board. They pop up to, oddly, 17th on the DK value board, but I don't know that that's all that accurate. I mean, there's a lot of mid-fours pricing. It's not as easy to get to as they are on FanDuel, but I see some value there for sure, points per dollar wise on the DK side too. So I think the Red Sox are worth getting to like crazy. 8th ranked for home runs, and I think there's probably a little bit more upside beyond what we might be showing even in the model here, just given how bad Johnny Brito is. And when he comes out bad, he comes out real bad. When he comes out okay, he's just a below average starter. Yeah, he leaves a lot of meaty pitches in the zone when things aren't going right. On the Brian Bayo side, 8,500, 9,000. I can see some realistic upside for Bayo. He projects out okay. That's a solid mid-board projection today. We'll scroll over after this game. I forgot to show the pitching board to start the show, but we'll take a look at it real quick. Bayo's okay. 20% strikeout rate, a 3.97 xFIP, a 3.81 ERA, 3.55% home runs on 44.8% barrels, given a 5.4 degree average launch angle. It's probably just a couple of mistakes or a few mistakes at this point. We're beyond the sample size where it would be a couple, but we're at a few mistakes still. I feel like it's still a little bit of incidental premium contact. Last year, he was just so good at limiting contact. Maybe it washes out to around a low 3s percentage, and we're just quibbling over a handful of percentage points. But I think it scales downward based on his ability to keep the ball down, not upward into the 4s over time. So I think he's an effective enough starter. He's not exactly value priced. That's the thing. 8,500, 9,000 on this board is kind of an awkward fit. I do think he can succeed. I do think 6 clean innings is on the board. Both shots of both bonuses is on the board. So there's definitely some potential here. I just don't know how valuable he is given the price point on either site. Let me know if you guys heard all of that. I just want to make sure that all these things are actually going out over the airwaves for the audio purposes. But I do think Bayo's on the board. To illustrate where his pricing falls in, that'll be a good way to look at the board here. Ignore these two guys up at the top. They're not on the FanDuel slate. They're obviously priced for DK value. I do think maybe there's a little bit for Xavier Curry at 55. I wrote him up yesterday. It's essentially the same play going up against that lousy Tigers lineup as like a value dart throw. It's very, very low end, and I actually prefer the Tigers side of it. But between him and Joey Wentz, that's the pitcher I would take in that game. But neither one of them are particularly interesting. The point here was to illustrate Bayo's price fit. At 9,000, 8,500, he just ranks kind of in the middle of the board with like both of these guys and then all of these guys basically projecting out as the same. So you've got a mix of prices, but you've got some 7s, some 8s, some lower prices here. You've got Zach Thompson in a weird spot at 62.56. We'll get to him. This is only a 4.5 inning projection, believe it or not. He projects out really weird. I think it's a value dart. I don't think he's going more than 5 innings, but I think he will get 5 if he's pitching cleanly. So that's an interesting spot on the board. And then you get Kyle Gibson up here, 82 on the DK slate, 300 less than Bayo, going up against Oakland. I like that spot quite a bit better. I think Seth Lugo's got a little bit of viability against Arizona, although I don't really like the matchup. But for 1,000 less than Bayo against the Yankees in Yankee Stadium, there's probably a little bit of potential there. So there's some interesting spots on the board. There's a lot of correct pricing. I think it's a really interesting slate for that. And it's a weird board because it peaks really high. Strider's obviously on a tier of his own up here. Then you've got these guys kind of on a plateau. I'll call like all of these guys basically similar on a plateau of like high-priced guys. And then another broad plateau of guys in that mid-range before it just kind of falls apart around a lot of these bottom-end options. But you can see Johnny Brito hanging out down here at the bottom with Peter Lambert, who's pitching in Coors Field today. Erasmo Ramirez, Brandon Pfaadt. Brito, not an option. So we're going to fire away with Red Sox bats. My placeholder lineup's got Red Sox in it. It's built with 2 AL East teams as a spoiler. The other one's not the Yankees. Alex Verdugo at the top, quality lefty bat off the top, 4,200, 2,800, good at getting on base, setting the table for Rafael Devers. He moves up in the lineup, 5,300, 3,500, up to a 12.5 in the home run model. I like him even better in that spot. We've talked about him numerous times. It's all about the power. That's all I really care about with Devers. I'm happy to pay a cheaper price for Rafael Devers when he's doing essentially the same thing for DFS purposes that he's always done. There is no real downgrade for our purposes with Rafael Devers. Justin Turner, Masataka Yoshida, 2 excellent options to set the table. They both have good mid-range power. Turner's got 19 homers. Yoshida's got 12. I almost called him Tanaka. Flashing back to Tanaka from the Yanks. Man, I wish we still had him. That was a quality pitcher. One of the more recent success stories as a Yankee free agent pitcher, which is sad because they signed him the better part of a decade and a half ago. Anyway, to continue the story here, Tristan Casas, major upside for a home run here, 4,300, 3,000, 20 long balls on the season, a 233 ISO, dynamite premium contact with 14.7% barrels, 46.5% hard hits. It's just a killer spot for that Tristan Casas bat, targeting that right field porch in Yankee Stadium. Prime spot for home run upside. Trevor Story, excellent power potential at the plate. No homers yet in his 33 plate appearances, but 15% barrels, 55% hard hits. He dipped back to a 65 WRC plus when we looked at him like 2 days ago in 24 plate appearances. He was at like a 130. That's going to flip and flop, how he does game to game for the next little bit. Larry C says, bring back Carl Pavano. No, thank you. On the Yanks side of things, to finish out the Red Sox lineup, Jarren Duran, another excellent option. That's why I said it does go through 7. Another lefty bat, having a really good year, 299, 350, 492, 25% better than average creating runs, 46.8% hard hits, can also steal you some bases. Reese McGuire and Pablo Reyes are mix-ins down the bottom of the lineup, quietly over 119 plate appearances, 318, 356, 436. 2 homers, 2 steals, 114 WRC plus for Pablo Reyes for 3,300, 2,200 as a mix-in to fill positions. Not bad. On the Yanks side, going up against Bayo, I expect that he'll have a somewhat limiting effect on their home run upside. Stephen Leibowitz has Casas as his dong pick. I like that one quite a bit. That's a premium home run pick today. 9.24 in the home run model for Judge, 6.67 for Stanton. Should illustrate, at least to some degree, Bayo's talent for keeping the ball on the ground, potentially limiting home run power. I do think the Yanks are playable, particularly for value pricing. Only Judge is expensive. Everybody else is really cheap. Not just like discounted, like really cheap for their talent. 4,200, 2,900 for Stanton is just too cheap. He should never be that inexpensive. Just monster power, 2 home run upside on any given slate. Glaber's a very good second baseman for only 39, 3,000, hitting 5th today with Jake Bauers slotting in 3rd. That's an interesting spot for Bauers. Decent lefty power, 2,600, 2,600 on both sites. First base on DK, first base outfield on FanDuel. He's got 11 sneaky homers and 233 ISO in 228 plate appearances. More so than that, I really like the contact he's been making. 20.5% barrels, 50.4% hard hits. That's very good for those prices. He's been a lot better than DJ LeMahieu this year. DJ's got a 44.4% hard hit, but not much else. 92 WRC plus. Really struggling. We all know Judge is a superstar, one of the best power hitters, if not the best power hitter full stop in the game. Probably is the best power hitter full stop in a healthy season, as we saw last year. Billy McKinney down lineup, 2,400, 2,300, another playable lefty bat. So, like, on a technical basis, the Yanks lineup kind of plays 1 through 8 because Bader and Volpe can contribute on any given slate. If they were at all reliable in the form that they were supposed to have been this season, this would be a much better lineup. If DJ was at all himself at the plate, or the old version of him that he hasn't been in like 2.5 years now, this would be a much better lineup. They're very, very flawed as it is, but any given slate upside in Yankee Stadium, hitter-friendly environment on a fairly warm night, 80 degrees right now. Should be a sunny, warm evening in the Bronx. So a little bit of potential for the Yankees. They're very, very cheap. So at worst, points per dollar, value-based potential. Makes you wonder why not lead off Torres. Yeah, Stephen Leibowitz, I agree with that. I think they're playing that game of like trying to get him going, whatever, moving things around for as far as DJ goes. You do get a little bit more pop from Glaber's bat, so if you move him down there, it kind of makes sense. But yeah, given Glaber's ability to put the ball in play with only 13.6% strikeouts this year, a 331 on base, which is pretty good, and one of the only positive run creation marks on the board, you would think they'd have him up at the top of the lineup. But I don't hate that spot for Glaber. This team is good from here through here, and then they have playable parts here, and here. Rortvet's primarily here for defense. He hit 1 home run in 40 plate appearances so far. He had 3 2 years ago in Minnesota, but more of a defensively oriented pitch framer as a catcher. Phillies and the Nats. We'll grab these lineups too. This is going to be fun. We got to pause every time for the lineups. Joker's here saying hi. Joker's saying like, hey, you weren't annoyed enough by all the stuff you forgot to do or screwed up coming into the show. I'm going to sit here and whine and bark at you too. That's the way that Joker's mind works. Yes, I know, pal. I know. Why don't you go lie down? Start locking you up with your pal Ozzy. Ozzy's the cat, by the way. All right. Back on track here. New York is always sunny in the evening. Evening for me lasts until about sunset. So, like, this game will start with some daylight left. 7:05 start. Stephen Leibowitz. Trying to be picking nits on me here. Got a lot to talk about. Cut me some slack. Yeah, it'll be eventually dark. Reminds me of the old Carlin bit, the hippy-dippy weatherman, Al Sleet. Tonight's forecast, dark. Increasingly dark, with widely scattered light toward morning. Phillies, Michael Lorenzen on the board. 2 awesome starts to start his Philly career. 8 innings the first time out. Decent outing. Then came back, followed it up with a no-hitter. Not too shabby. 9-inning complete game shutout. Did walk 4 in that game. It's kind of a weird output from that perspective. But he was pretty terrific in those first starts. 5 strikeouts, 4 walks in the no-hitter against the Nationals. So it's against the same team that he's facing tonight. The first start was against Miami. He allowed a homer, 2 runs, a homer, 6 hits, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts over 8 innings. Given the idea of depth, the potential for clean innings coming right back against the Nationals, I don't expect that he's going to go out there and no-hit them and stretch it out over 18 innings. But a couple of runs, a handful of strikeouts, 7 clean innings, I think that's probably on board here for Lorenzen. Over the course of the season, 3.23 ERA, a 4.39 xFIP, a sparkling 1.04 WHIP, pretty good 6.7% walk rate, 19.4% strikeouts, could be better, but he's been okay for for limiting premium contact and limiting home runs. 7.4% barrels, 90.3 miles an hour is a little bit higher than I want it. 40.6% hard hits, a little bit higher than I want it. But 2.51% home runs. He's effectively limited bad contact, limited the barrels just enough. Kept the launch angle on key hits just enough down that it's not really impacting him for home runs. There's enough strikeout potential. Nationals, as we know, better against lefties. Kind of middling team against righties. You do have C.J. Abrams up there if you're going to Nationals bats. Lane Thomas is their best player overall. But C.J.'s right there with him in terms of quality, and I think he'll develop into a better player as time goes on. Came to this team as a premium prospect and has kind of delivered this season. Below average for WRC+, but 11 homers, 33 steals. Has been really good since they moved him to the leadoff spot. A bargain at shortstop for $46,300. It's not like Lorenzen's a blow him away, Jacob deGrom kind of keeping Jacob deGrom alive by mentioning him in this kind of a situation this season. But Lorenzen's not like a premium starter on the mound. So the idea that C.J. Abrams couldn't have a good game, Layton Thomas couldn't have a good game, that would be silly to say. So I do think you can take a few shares of Nationals bats. Abrams would be a priority bat. Lane Thomas would be a priority bat. 4,700, 3,500 across sites. Still pricey a little bit on FanDuel. 281, 328, 475. He's kind of settled into that range for his triple slash. 20 homers, 15 steals, a 114 WRC+. He's having a nice year. I just think that's kind of an aggressive price. He should be a couple $100 lower. Joey Meneses shown a little bit of pop lately, 11 home runs, more of a hit tool-oriented player, 139 ISO on the season, a 103 WRC+, 283 in the batting average department, only 19% strikeouts, 41.6% hard hits, can put bat on ball effectively. Kiebert up to 15 homers, a 99 WRC+, effective catcher option, 4,200, 2,800, always under-owned. Dom Smith, middling option, okay hit tool, 266, but no power, to speak of whatsoever. A .080 ISO, only 90 WRC plus, only gets on at a 338 clip because he only walks 7.7% of the time. 15.6% strikeout rate is very good. He's good at putting the ball in play, but he doesn't hit it with authority. So he doesn't generate extra base hits, and he doesn't walk, so he doesn't get himself on base to create extra opportunities. So his run creation is just kind of lousy. He's just got to hit to it. He's kind of like a Jeff McNeil almost, which is weird. Still Garrett, a little bit of pop, but typically against lefties, not righties. Not the greatest situation for him. Jake Alou, Ildemaro Vargas, and Blake Rutherford kind of round out the lineup as mix and match parts. Philly side of things looks a hell of a lot better. Going up against Jonah Adon, 25.9% strikeouts for Adon in 14 innings, 2 starts, a 5.14 ERA, 3.88 xFIP, some targetable premium contact, a very low projection for the money. He was down near the bottom of the board. Even as a dart throw, as like a low-end mix-in, I really don't see it. Just doesn't seem like the opportunity for me. 5.20 run total earlier in the day for the Phillies. Might have even gone up since then. So I really like the opportunity to grab some Phil's bats. Kyle Schwarber, 10.87 in the home run model. Monster mark at the top of the board. Obviously a flawed hitter in terms of the average. 180, 322, 418, but a 239 ISO. Has a 16.6% walk rate to support the 322 on base. That could be a little bit better, but he's very, very good at still getting himself to first base and staying involved when he's not striking out or hitting a home run. That's all we ask of Kyle Schwarber. He's cheap enough, $5,000, $3,500. Good play off the top. Average down the salary with Alec Boehm, who's a tremendous play at first and third. Very productive season this year with the bat in his hands. 105 WRC plus, 12 homers, 283, 336, 424. Correlates nicely with Harper, Castellanos through the middle. And then you get this option of Bryson Stott, Trey Turner, second base and shortstop. Both fairly affordable. 31, 3,000 is cheap for both players. Very cheap for Turner on the FanDuel site. 12 homers, 22 steals in a down year. 86 WRC plus isn't good, but the ceiling on Trey Turner is massive on any given slate. We know that this guy, at his core, is a superstar having a weird down season overall, but he still does produce from time to time. He's very cheap at a premium position on the FanDuel slate. He's affordable, let's say, at 52 on the DK slate. DK's being conservative about lowering his price. They're doing the right thing with him and keeping in mind his superstar upside. Stott's been excellent, 4,000, 3,100. He's still very cheap on the DK slate for a guy with 11 homers, 23 steals, and a 109 WRC plus. Excellent triple slash. Real Muto, excellent catcher option with 15 homers, 12 steals, a positive WRC plus, a 214 ISO. Tremendous power bat. Good at stealing bases when he gets on for a catcher. It would be nice if Real Muto was one of those guys who hit higher in the lineup. Like Alec Boehm hit down lineup pretty effectively most of the season. Why not move Real Muto up to that second spot? Get him in those few additional plate appearances. That might even pay off a little bit better than having Boehm in that spot if you're Philly. Just to put him in like a Will Smith, Adley Rutschman, William Contreras kind of a mode where he picks up the additional, quarter of a plate appearance every 2 games or whatever. Jake Cave, Johan Rojas, minimal options at the bottom of the lineup. Mix and match guys. They're certainly not Brandon Marsh and the guys that we had at the bottom of the lineup earlier in the year. But if you're building a bunch of Philly stacks, I wouldn't leave them out entirely. There's a little bit of ability there. Let's move on. Let's keep the pace going. So this one was, I didn't rank the Yankees one. The Yankees was no Johnny Brito. It was Red Sox bats, Yankees bats as a value, Brian Bayo as like an awkward fit price-wise, no Johnny Brito in that one. And then this one was similar in that it's Phillies bats, Michael Lorenzen as a pretty good mid-board option, but high-priced. No real interest in the Nationals bats, but have some just like as a mixer. And then no real interest in Adon going up against the Phillies here. Got confirmed lineups for this one as well. Who likes the Braves today? Braves are in an interesting spot today going up against Cobb. We will talk about it momentarily. We've featured him a few times when we've looked at his matchups through the season, and we've talked about his ability to, historically keep power in check. It's going to be an interesting matchup. They're obviously spectacular at finding their home runs against basically anybody. Cobb for the season, 2.69% home runs this year on a 1.2 degree average launch angle. That's spectacular. 7.2% barrels. Last year, 3.7% barrels on 1.8 degrees of launch, 1.43% home run rate. So the barrels have gone up. They've basically doubled year over year. The home run rate's gone up in accordance with that, this is still excellent, and the launch angle is still excellent. Has actually come down a little bit on average. So that amounts to, more than a few, but a handful of mistake pitches over time for a pitcher who typically reliably keeps the ball down very, very well. But the Braves could certainly capitalize on one of those mistakes or two of those mistakes if he makes them. If he does, the ball's probably going to travel. 2 years ago, 4.2% barrel rate, 3-degree average launch, 1.27% home run rate. So, demonstrable quality for keeping the ball in the yard over time. Has been a better strikeout pitcher in years past, 23.9 and 24.9 in the last 2 years, down to 21.2 this year, but still pitching well overall. 3.62 ERA, a 3.44 xFIP. He was like that break point at the bottom of the board when I said there's that long plateau of guys who look, kind of same for a range of prices. He was the bottom man on that list. It was like a 26 to 22 on the FanDuel scale point projection range. I would maybe play some shares of Cobb. Probably more as a $7,900 option as an SP2, even over there in limited doses, just given the Braves' excellence. Even if they're not hitting home runs, they can correlate, they can create runs, they can get on base like crazy. So it's not one I want to mess with too frequently. It wouldn't shock me if Alex Cobb came out and had an okay outing here, where he maybe limits the Braves' success a little bit, keeps them a little bit lower end. Like, you can see his effect coming through in the home run model here. They're extremely limited for the Braves. Ronald Acuna at a 6.26, he's typically over 10. Matty Olson at a 7.8, he lives over 10 in this model. So those two guys are the indicator points, and then you get like Austin Riley 5.8, Marcell Ozuna down to 5.4. So Cobb has a limiting effect on the power probability here. Possible, yes. Probable, less so than usual. That's the impact on the Braves here. The impact that their lineup has, given the shakeup with no Ozzie Albies in it, is a very discounted Michael Harris hitting second, making it a lot easier to stack this top end. You get discounted Marcell Ozuna on both sites. You get discounted Eddie Rosario on both sites. You get a little bit of a price savings on Sean Murphy hitting down lineup now. So the Braves are a little bit easier to get to now. A little bit of a cost dip on Riley on the DK slate, down to 59. Olsen and Acuna obviously still super expensive, difficult to get to, but just the combination, the ability to combine these guys has gotten a little bit more friendly. Not much, it's still not easy, especially if you want to go to an option like their ridiculously high-priced starting pitcher today. But I think they are in play. I think there's a little bit of potential, but they're more of a middling option than they normally are. A little bit more cautious with the Braves exposure than I normally would be. A lot of days we're just letting fly with Braves exposure and taking it where we get it. Today I'm going to kind of keep an eye on it, but obviously we've got all this home run potential. We've got all this on base skill. Average of a 350 on base percentage on the average for that lineup. That's including Nicky Lopez at 330. That's including Eddie Rosario at 299. It's an outrageously good team. Everybody in the lineup creates runs. Everybody hits for power. There's some strikeouts there for Cobb if he wants them, but not in an egregious sense. Some of it's averaged down by like Lopez at 15.9, obviously Acuna at 12.3. Through the middle, there's a lot of mid-20 strikeouts, guys. Spencer Strider, top of the board. Couldn't do anything about the projection. That's just where it is. 12.7, 11.5. He's crazy expensive when compared to the other options on the slate. That almost offsets the difference between his projection and those other guys like the Pablo Lopez's of the world at the top of the board. It'll be interesting to see where Strider comes down for ownership today. There's obviously a gigantic ceiling for this pitcher. We know that Spencer Strider is the best pitcher in baseball when things are going right. There's really no issue in going to him in any situation. And I think against this Giants team, there's a pretty good upside. 139 and a third, 24 starts, 3.75 ERA, 2.87 xFIP. A bit more premium contact than we want or expected at 9.6% barrels, up from 6.1% last year. He gave up a 1.33% home run rate in 20 starts last year. That's up to 3.15% this year. But it's still only on 34.3% hard hits. He's still got a 37.9% strikeout rate, a 34.4% CSW, and 19.6% swinging strike rate. The Giants have a 23.7% collective strikeout rate against righties, a 167 ISO, a 107 WRC+. There is a little bit of left-handed power potential in this lineup, but Strider has a big impact on home runs just like Alex Cobb does, although he does it in different ways. So he does it by just inducing so much swing and miss that they don't have the opportunity to hit home runs, really. Very tepid interest in anything Giants today. A few hedge stacks, a few contrarian stacks. Go to the quality lefties. Lamont Wade is one of those guys, although his on base has dipped down to 384. He's been stuck at 11 home runs for a while. He's down to a 258 average. Still a decent run creator, decent putter of bat on ball. Wade Meckler in the second spot in the lineup. Mid-range prospect, hit tool and speed kind of a guy. Hitting second. It's an okay spot in the lineup for a $2,100 min price on FanDuel guy. But probably overmatched. Making his 12th plate appearance when the game starts. Probably overmatched. Wilmer's been outrageous this season. 3,300, 2,900. Tons of value in him with 3 position eligibility. He'd probably be the most interesting hitter at the top out of the top 3. Even though Wade is a lefty and he's a righty, I just believe in Wilmer a little bit more than Wade. Wade, you're going to need him to probably get on base to find value here. Maybe exploit a little bit of Strider's advanced walk rate this year. It's 7.9%. It's not like it's ugly, but that's what Wade would be looking to do. 16.1% walk rate for him on the season. Pretty good. Jock Peterson, Michael Conforto, those are the 2 lefty power bats I was referring to. J.D. Davis back in the lineup, 15 home runs. Most of his powers come against righties this season. But again, we're talking about a high strikeout guy who's probably overmatched against this righty. Patrick Bailey, Brandon Crawford, Thairo Estrada round out the lineup. It's a pretty weak Giants lineup. They project down board for a reason today. I really like the Strider side of it. I hope he goes a little low owned because he's so high priced and so difficult to get to with any kind of quality bats. I mean, they just really are taxing the Strider's play on this slate on both sites. But overall, the Giants rank 20th by collective fantasy points, 23rd. Which I mistakenly only ranked 24 of the 26 teams because they weren't on the FanDuel slate. But that would probably drop. I bet the Tigers would land over their mark. So they would probably drop to like 24th, 25th. Probably 24th because the Guardians wouldn't crack that mark. So low-end power marks and low-end points per dollar marks for the Giants. So not a big fan of the Giants stack. Spencer Strider, Braves bats. Minor Alex Cobb darts for a decent value price, but very low expectation. You're looking for clean innings there, and he's got a shot, 5-6 clean innings. Keeps the Braves off the board. Maybe they get a run off Strider and you cruise to a win or something, but pretty thin, and he's also got to have the bullpen get him to that win. So once he comes out of the game, all bets are off for Braves power, all bets are off for Braves run creation, et cetera, et cetera. And, of course, he's no lock to keep them limited. Brewers, Brandon Woodruff on the ball. Oh, let me do the Tigers and Guardians game. That one slots in around here. All right, so as you can see, there's no projections. There's no home run projections up on the board. I just wanted to be able to show something here. So we've got the DK pricing, and we've got their statistics, which is all we really need. Let's see what's going on in the chat real quick. Larry says Strider is at 35% on DK. That is aggressive for such a high-priced play. I will say that. Yeah, Steven, I got the... I want to post again that the Tigers Guardians is not on the DK slate? Wait, what? Did it get taken off? It's on there on Labs. It's in the salaries. Hey, Larry. All right. Why not? What happened? I mean, it was in the DK salaries. I will. That's where I got the salaries. Did they take it down? Did I accidentally grab the full day slate? I don't think so. Today, 13 games. Did they remove it? Okay. Disabled from the blah, 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 blah. All right. That's important information. All right. Appreciate it, guys. Yeah, no, Lara, I appreciate that. You guys should have told me that when I was struggling to get it on the board earlier. I don't know if you did and I missed it. I wish I had seen it. $66 people here tolerating this mess of a show. It's already 5 o'clock. Yeah, DK put it. I saw the sticky now that you guys pointed me at it. Yeah. What I hadn't done was go into DK again later in the day to see that. I just saw that it was up on Labs and everything. Steven, yeah, you told me 12 times. I got it. Now I noticed. So good. We don't have to talk about that. If you're making bets on that game, I like a little bit of Tigers power. A little bit of Spencer Torkelson upside. A little bit of Riley Green upside. A little bit of Kerry Carpenter, who was my home run pick yesterday, and we didn't get it. Home run Kerry Carpenter tonight. All right. Let's get into this one. Poe DJ and Stoner watched Unknown last night. Not that shitty Liam Neeson movie. That one was pretty good. Had that dude from As Good as It Gets and the sniper dude from Saving Private Benjamin. Watch the slurs there, Poe DJ. I know you probably didn't mean it, but let's not go that route. I don't want to have to boot you. All right. Yeah, we got a team. Exactly, Kevin. Oh, that's why everybody's the Roto Scouts, because I need you guys to point this shit out to me, and it saves the day time and again. Brandon Woodruff, Andrew Heaney. Heaney pushing his usual home run upside toward the Brewers side of things. 3.89% home run rate on the season, a 4.17 ERA, a 4.49 xFIP with a 24.4% strikeout rate. He's all over the map, as usual. You get good Heaney, you get bad Heaney. You get them both in the same game sometimes. You get that a lot of the time. In a good opportunity, he's got a massive strikeout potential. There is a little bit of strikeout opportunity on the board against the Brewers, 22.2% strikeout rate collectively for the projected lineup. I'm sure we've got a confirmed lineup. Oh, maybe not. Do we not have the Brewers lineup yet? We'll grab the Rangers while I'm here. So it's not a incredibly high strikeout rate for that lineup, but there's certainly strikeouts there if you get the good version of Heaney today. It's just a matter of which one of this guy shows up. The home runs are actually down a bit year over year and from 2 years ago. So maybe he's wrangled it a little bit. But, I mean, the barrels are still ludicrously high. 10.8 is essentially the same as 11. 38.2% hard hits is down from 47.7. The exit velo hovering around the same range. 5.20% home runs 2 years ago. 4.52% home runs last year. Home runs are very wonky. So, like, it's the premium contact I worry more about than the actual numbers here. These are somewhat negligible differences. He gives up home run power. We all know that. He also walks too many, gives up too many opportunities. On the right day, you could have a decent start here for price. He projects okay. He's in the lower middle of the board overall in part of that plateau of, value guys in that mid-range. 77.86, competitively priced, fairly priced for his opportunity here. Brandon Woodruff on the other side, one of the top-end pitchers of the day. Even going up against Texas, I like this spot for Woodruff. 10-9, 10-5, obviously you're paying a lot for it, but relative to Strider, that's a fairly discounted price for one of the other better strikeout pitchers on the board. 30.6% strikeout rate with a 4.7% walk rate in his 22 and 2/3 innings. Fairly irrelevant sample size over 4 starts for the season. 2 starts since coming back from injury. I screwed that up last time. I didn't want to screw it up again. 0.084 whip for the season, a 16.1% swinging strike rate. What I'm more interested in than those numbers occurring in this small sample, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. This is just him coming right back to, at the beginning of the season, being exactly who he is. 30.6% strikeouts last year in the 153, 29.8% in the 179 and a third the year before. Good ERAs, good xFIPs, low walk rates. When healthy, Brandon Woodruff is a terrific pitcher. So I'm happy to go to this spot, even at price, even against the Rangers. I definitely think there's upside here. In his 2 starts back, he went 5 innings, struck out 9, allowed 2 runs on 4 hits to 18 hitters in the first outing, and then went 6 1/3, struck out 5 of 25 White Sox, allowed 2 runs on a homer, 4 total hits. 2 very good innings, and the most encouraging thing about that, in addition to just looking like who he is, he went 6 1/3 in that White Sox game, faced 25 hitters. I don't know exactly what the pitch count was, but as long as he's going that deep into the game, I'm happy to take the opportunity here. So full go for Brandon Woodruff to be Brandon Woodruff in this spot. That said, a few shares of Rangers on the other side is perfectly in order given their talent. Marcus Semien, Corey Seager, superstars off the top of the lineup for very high prices. 19 homers and 11 steals for Semien in a season where he's focusing on getting on base a little bit more, being a bit more of a correlated scorer, putting the ball in play. Excellent 13.1% strikeout rate, 9.9% walks, 353 on base. He's very, very good, very worth the money. Put him in combination with his double play partner or any of the guys in the lineup. 66.43. Seager's totally worth that. 348, 411, 661 triple slash this year. A 313 ISO, 22 home runs and 353 plate appearances, making some of the best contact in the league at 19.5% barrels, 56.8% hard hits. He's outrageous. He is a superstar at shortstop. Nathaniel Lowe, very good season. Cheap, 14 home runs, 126 WRC plus, decent triple slash. Helps you average down the cost of these guys. Adolis Garcia, 8.64 in the home run model, 30 on the season, 7 stolen bases, 256 ISO. Feel like he's running a little bit less. He stole 20 bags last year, right? Yeah, 25 bases last year, 16 the year before. Running a little bit less this year, but that's incidental for our purposes. As long as he's hitting for power, I'm happy. Both catchers in the lineup, Mitch Garver and Jonah Heim, 36-37 on DK, 3,032 on FanDuel. Both super playable on both sites. You can go weird and go Garver and Heim at first base catcher and the utility position in a FanDuel construction and just skip Nathaniel Lowe and get to essentially the same kind of a play for a little bit cheaper even. There's not that much daylight between what they do at the plate and what he does at the plate. 8 home runs for Garver with a decent triple slash, a good triple slash over 187, 14 homers for Jonah Heim, made the All-Star team, 277, 334, 470, 120 WRC plus. Excellent options there. JP Martinez, 2,500, 2,300, has had pretty productive 23 plate appearances. Mix and match kind of an option down the bottom of the lineup. No Ezekiel Duran, no Leody Taveras down bottom today. Josh Smith, Travis Jankowski. Lower end bottom 3 than usual here, but very playable lineup even against Woodruff. Probably a hedge position, mid-range stacks, not a ton of points per dollar. They were 10th by fantasy points, 9th by home run potential, just given all the talent that they have, but 18th by points per dollar value on both sides. On the Brewers side of things, if you're throwing bats at Heaney, I do think Christian Yelich is very playable. 5,300, 3,800. He's just a superstar in that lineup, or he's a star. I have to stop short of superstar, I guess, because he's not a massive home run hitter. He's a very, very, very good player. Maybe not a great player, but he's priced like a very, very good player. 5,300, 3,800 in the outfield. Perfectly fair. Above the magic number for home run power. So is Willy Adames. Adames is maddeningly inconsistent. 4,500, 2,900, 201, 286, 375, 21% below average grading runs. Does have those 18 homers. That's kind of who he is at the plate. Very flawed hitter. Does have power. Strikes out too much. Carlos Santana has a manageable strikeout rate, pretty good walk rate. Marcana, same thing in the heart of the lineup if that's where they hit today. Santana, switch hitter, 16 home runs, a 176 ISO. An okay season. He's very cheap at 4,000, 2,900. I mentioned William Contreras and the value that he gets from being a catcher who hits second in the lineup. Just bonus plate appearances. We'll talk about that with Adley Rutschman later. We'll talk about that with Will Smith later. But they're just dynamite options in their respective lineups. 12 home runs on the season, a 112 WRC plus for Contreras. Very playable part. Monasterio at the further down the lineup, down here. Multi-position eligible on both sites. Triple position on FanDuel. 10% better than average grading runs in 270 and 185 plate appearances with an okay triple slash. Joey Wiemer was my home run pick for the Brewers today because why not? Wanted a weird one against Heaney. 6.80 in the home run model. 13 on the season. 11 stolen bases. 83 WRC plus. At 22-25, he's a playable mix-in from the bottom of the lineup. To me, more so than Brian Anderson. Probably a little more so than even Tyrone Taylor, who does have sneaky power also from the right side for similar pricing. So it's a lot of value guys down here. Some playable parts with a star, a mixed bag, and a pretty good catcher up here. They're not great, but they're an okay mid-range stack. They're a pretty decent points per dollar stack. They're a pretty decent home run opportunity stack. 4th by home runs, 8th by DraftKings points per dollar, 15th by FanDuel, and only 14th overall by overall just aggregate fantasy points. So a middling kind of a stack going up against a middling kind of a pitcher. If I was ranking it, it would be Woodruff, Rangers bats, Brewers bats for value, Andrew Heaney. I do think all 4 parts are at least moderately playable. Pirates, Twins. We've got lineups on both sides. G1 Bay in the Pirates lineup in the leadoff role. Look at that. Didn't even know he was in the league anymore. I think he's been hurt. Oh, I had the Twins lineup. That's right. The Twins lineup was confirmed early. Forgot about that. All right. Let's get into this one. See what's going on in the chat. Kyle Tucker scratched. Son of a bitch. Obi-Wan, are you really asking if there's other issues in the Detroit-Cleveland game? Don't do that to me. Po DGen, no worries, buddy. It's it happens. Especially us older folks who grew up with words being thrown around with different quote unquote back then okay as far as we knew kind of meanings. I get how that kind of a thing happens. Especially when we're typing it, let's just be careful about those sorts of things in public chats for your own good. I don't want you to have to, I don't want people to dislike you or something, you know? Anyway. So, all right, Kyle Tucker got scratched. I'll grab the new version of that Houston lineup when we get there. That's, I think, the next game. Pablo Lopez, that's a good starting point for this one. Second highest projected pitcher on my board, 10-6, 10-8. Another guy like Woodruff, who just relative to Strider, those are very affordable prices. They're obviously very high prices overall, but he's worth it. He's been worth it for most of this season. 3.66 ERA, a 3.31 xFIP this year, 30% strikeouts, a 14.6% swinging strike rate, a 30.4% CSW percentage. Forget it. He's been outrageous. 87.6 miles an hour of exit velo, 36.3% hard hits, 2.83% home run rate, going up against the light hitting Pirates. Team with a ton of strikeouts in this confirmed lineup, 27.3% strikeout rate. Only Brian Hayes below a 20%. That's a targetable lineup. There's some small samples here, obviously, but their small samples also play when I talk about their power and their interestingness at the bottom of the lineup in a minute. So small samples play both ways. A lot of strikeouts on deck for Pablo Lopez. I love this spot for Pablo Lopez. I'm going to have a ton. I expect he's going to be massively popular given where Strider's priced. I'll make my decisions relative to where the field's going to look like, how easy it is to build good-looking Strider lineups and all. But regardless of where the field is, I'll at worst be pretty close to the field, even if I do a little bit of an undercut on Pablo Lopez today. Love the option. If you go to Pirates, Ji-Hwan Bae off the top, 2,500 on both sides, second base and outfield eligible, 238, 301, 308, 68 WRC plus. Does have 20 steals on the season. When last we saw him, he was hitting later in the lineup. Interesting option in the leadoff role, given not much of a skill set with the bat in his hands, a 301 on base percentage, but they're the Pirates. These things happen. Brian Reynolds, Brian Hayes, Jack Sawinski, Henry Davis, Andy Rodriguez, and Leover Peguero. Through the middle of the lineup is really where you want to make your Pirate stacks. And there's a lot of mixed bag type quality here. Jack Sawinski is a premium left-handed power hitter. 21 home runs, a 246 ISO, very realistic power, but also a 33.7% strikeout rate. 14.5% walks is good, helps offset it, helps keep him above the waterline for run creation, and he's got an 18.3% barrel rate, 47.7% hard hit rate. He's the only guy above the magic number in the home run model on that team, so if anybody ruins Pablo's day, and probably my day, it'll be Jack Sawinski. So if I'm building hedge stacks of Pirates, Jack is probably going to be in most of them, is what I'm trying to say. Brian Reynolds is a star. Not really underperforming on this season. It just feels like he's underperforming. I wrote underperforming when I was writing the article, and then I scrolled over and I looked at these numbers, and underperforming the hit tool from this season. Maybe he falls a little short of the power from this season, but he'll probably get to the home run total from that season. The ISO is okay. It's over 200, which is around what last year was. It's short of the year before. Everything both of these years was short of the outrageous year he had 2 years ago. But he's not really underperforming. 266, 330, 469 compared to 262, 345, 461. The ISO's better. 18 homers compared to 27 in 150 more plate appearances. 9 stolen bases compared to 7 last year. I think that maybe the star reputation is a little bit bright-eyed for Reynolds. I mean, that's not really fair. If I'm calling Christian Yelich a star, he's like that kind of a star with a little bit more home run upside probably. He's not outrageous, but he's not outrageously priced. $4,700, $3,500 for the player I just described is a very fair price. If you're going to Pirate stacks, he belongs in most of them. Brian Hayes, 49.3% hard hits. That's what we will continue to focus on as long as this guy continues to underperform that rate. 8 homers, 261, 298, 422, 161 ISO. He is underperforming his contact. 19.6% strikeout rate combines very well with this excellent hard hit rate. Should be a better hitter than he is. Henry Davis, 3,000, 2,700 has been pretty decent over his 202 plate appearances. Good premium contact, 5 homers, 3 steals. As a catcher, that's fine. As an outfielder, he is a catcher on the FanDuel slate. As an outfielder, that's okay. The power from Andy Rodriguez is okay. 2 home runs, a 173 ISO, 9.6% barrels, 42.3% hard hits in his 83 plate appearances. As a catcher, that's pretty okay. A lot to keep in my head. Leover Peguero has been very good in 76 plate appearances, 5 home runs, a 243 ISO, 115 WRC plus. 8.7% barrels is good. The hard hits not so good. striking out at a 32.9% clip. I suspect he normalizes for the negative in terms of the batting average. The on base is already not that great. I expect the power will come down. The ISO will come down. Decent power prospect, but just out to an outrageous start for a very cheap option at second base. Shortstop, 5 home runs in that short of plate appearances is something special to have had in those opportunities. It's not at all predictive about his opportunity tonight, but he does have a 6.24 in the home run model. That's competitive with like Brian Reynolds. I think he's an option for me if I'm building Pirate stacks. I'll say that much, especially at cheap pricing. Alfonso Rivas, Alika Williams, less so. Mix and match type guys if you get carried away with a lot of Pirate stacks, which you probably shouldn't do in this spot. Andre Jackson, 26 and a third innings, 1 start on the board, 25% strikeout rate, a 5.47 ERA, a 3.63 xFIP. Pretty minimal on the walk rate. I want to see what that start looked like. I think I wrote about it, but I already forgot. The start came in 3 2/3 last time out, 18 hitters, 3 earned runs, a homer, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts. Not getting more than like 4 innings probably out of him. It's a pretty light projection. I think that's a 4.5 inning projection just because that's where the cut line for the model is. So probably lower end than even what is showing there. I really don't see it for Andre Jackson here. Even against the Twins' aggressive strikeout rates, probably pretty targetable. He is having a weird impact that I meant to note in the power index on the Twins home run numbers. I'm not entirely sure why. I suspect that it's some of these short sample bullpen numbers from last year and the year before. 26.5% hard hits, 89.2 and a 2% home run rate, and then didn't give up a home run in 9 2/3 innings last year. They're extremely small samples, but they're competitive enough with his sample from this year that's been atrocious for power that it's having a weird impact on the numbers. There's no way that I can easily put my finger on the scale to like have these numbers pop higher for display purposes. And I didn't want to do something like that anyway, because who knows? He could come out there and be that guy on the mound for 4 innings today. But I do think there's more power for the Twins than what is showing here. They're very, very cheap. They're an easy value play anyway, even without their power. They ranked low in terms of the overall points and low in terms of how the power is showing. But like I said, it's higher end power, and they ranked, even with that, 9th for DraftKings points per dollar value, given all these really cheap prices. Most expensive guy on DK, $4,600 for Jorge Polanco. He's also the most expensive at $3,100 on the FanDuel slate. Then there's talent in this lineup. Carlos Correa is in this lineup. I know he's been bad this year, but he's still got 15 homers, a 178 ISO. Jorge Polanco's in this lineup. He's been good in his 203 plate appearances. 8 homers, a 198 ISO. Matt Wallner's in this lineup for $2,400, $2,900. He's got 9 homers and 126 plate appearances and a 284 ISO. Obviously, very small sample. Obviously not going to carry that power on forever, but a reliable lefty power bat at this point. 16.9% barrels, 47.9% hard hits, carried over that 126 plate appearances. That's enough at this price to throw at Andre Jackson. Max Kepler's got 20 home runs to lead this lineup on the season. 232 ISO for the lefty. Atrocious in terms of the triple slash, but we're never looking for Max for his triple slash. We're looking for power, and he's got a 13% barrel rate and a 45% hard hit rate. Edward Julian's been really good. Took a little bit of a dip recently, but the price is at $3,200, $2,800. He was outrageous through July. Got himself up to a 145 WRC+, 293, 386, 486, 10 homers. Royce Lewis in the lineup at $3,200, $2,800. Shortstop and third base eligible. A lot of multi-position. A lot of flexible infield parts. So if you like getting your corners and your outfielders elsewhere, you can grab a couple cheap infielders from this lineup. Maybe you throw in Ryan Jeffers at catcher and like a 3-man on DK. Move along, just not spending anything on a couple capable guys. It's a playable lineup. It's not a great lineup. It comes together really weird. But like even at the bottom of the lineup with like Donovan Solano, $2,700, $2,300. Not a threatening power hitter. Not by any means. But a 121 WRC+, over 324 plate appearances. 43.1% hard hits. One of their better strikeout rates at just 22.2%. 279, 373, 400. Gets himself involved despite a lack of premium power. So for 27, 23, especially 23 on FanDuel with triple position eligibility, that's a playable part. Michael A's a playable part that nobody ever goes to. He's got 15 unowned home runs and a dozen unowned stolen bases on the season. Pablo Lopez, big play. Twins value bats. Minor shares of like a hedge position with some Pirates bats. They're not completely uninteresting. To reiterate the Pirates' priorities, Pirates priority plays. Probable Pirates priority plays in a quadruple alliteration. Brian Reynolds, Jack Sawinski, probably Davis and Rodriguez and Peguero, or Cabrian Hayes. So it's right through the heart of the lineup. My stack would probably be 1, 2, 3. If I'm building on DK, I might go 4, 5 and leave out Henry Davis just to get the catcher in there and to get the low-owned Peguero play at second base or shortstop. I just kind of like how that comes together rather than building another outfielder into it on DK. I think that would be my 5-man Pirate stack on DK. But a limited option. Mariners and the Astros. Is JP France super popular? Do you guys know? It seemed like one of the other sites kind of liked him. Who did I just grab? That was the Mariners. I wasn't getting a great projection on France. He looks like kind of an also-ran option to me. What he gives you is innings on the mound. 102 innings in 16 starts, 1 bullpen appearance, I think, or maybe a couple of bullpen appearances in there. But he's got a lot of 6, 7 inning starts. A lot of clean sheets, but 2.74 ERA, but a 4.51 xFIP, only a 17.4% strikeout rate. I don't love it. He's pretty good at limiting premium contact. Only 2.39% home runs. Decent on the hard hits, the barrels, the eggs of velo. Maybe one of these better real-life pitchers than fantasy pitchers. What kills me on him, he would be a decent option. I think he's an okay option for an SP2 on DK, but even that price is high at $8,700. It's an awkward value fit. It's another awkward value fit. At $97 on FanDuel, I just don't need it. I think that's just way, way too high. Even against the Mariners with all their strikeouts, maybe he picks up a couple of bonus strikeouts. Maybe he goes 6, 7, gets you the bonuses, but I don't know. I don't love this play for price on the FanDuel slate. He's on that board, but more toward the bottom of that plateau. Plateaus don't have bottoms. They're broad and wide, but you know what I mean. So, yeah, a middling option at best for me. I think on both sides. A little bit more meat on the bone on the DK slate, but not a lot. You're looking for clean innings. You're looking for a long, deep start. But the Mariners have been frisky. Even with all the strikeouts in that lineup, there's plenty of power in that lineup. They've been a very cheap stack of late. 55.39 for Julio is the most expensive player on both sites. He's come around a little bit. 20 home runs, 30 steals. He falls short of being Bobby Witt Jr. like. Bobby Witt Jr., the only player to go 20-30 in his first 2 seasons in the league. Last year, Julio went 28-25, so he's missing it. He's at 20-30 this season, but obviously spectacular star caliber output for counting stats. A 119 WRC plus. He's short of the 146 from last year. The ISO short of the 225. The homers might get to the 28 though. The stolen bases are already ahead. The triple slash is catching up. Julio's catching back up to being Julio again for fair prices to start a stack. Eugenio Suarez, tons of power for him in the bat in that bat. 12.2% barrels, 44.6% hard hits, 41.27 comes cheap at third base with 17 home runs, a 155 ISO, 103 WRC plus, wildly inconsistent, 30.4% strikeouts, but a guy who could definitely connect and contribute against a non-threatening strikeout pitcher. Ty France, more of a contact-oriented hitter, does have 10 home runs on the season, a 109 WRC plus, but it's a dip in his triple slash, it's a dip even in his power, and definitely in his run creation output. He's cheap, he's easy to build into stacks at 35.29, and he's got a very good spot in the lineup. So I don't skip Ty France like all that often, not out of habit, certainly, in that lineup. But I do think out of everybody in the top portion of the lineup, he's one of the more skippable parts, unless his salary is kind of a requirement or the position. Cal Raleigh, I like quite a bit. 13.5% barrel rate, 40.5% hard hits, 22 home runs on the season, a 234 ISO. Just a masher of a catcher. Hit the home run the other day, the day after we had him as the home run pick. I like him on the board today, 7.43 in the model. 9.44. The 7.43 belongs to Teoscar Hernandez in the next spot. Both of those guys are high strikeout guys, 28.1%, 30.7% strikeout rates, but tons and tons of power from both of those guys. Teoscar's been down. He doesn't draw walks. 295 on base, a 5.4% walk rate. That's why his WRC plus is below average. Only a 172 ISO is a little bit of a disappointment, particularly for a guy with 14% barrels, 47% hard hits. He should have a little bit more of an ISO than that, but 18 home runs is at least sturdy. Marlowe, Mike Ford, capable lefties, Jose Caballero, Josh Rojas, mix and match type guys. Ford's having a weird year, 2,500, 2,400, 11 home runs in just 158 plate appearances. One of those just odd duck quad A type players who has hit some success this year. There's a lot of those guys this season. 25, 24, first base, mix and match option at worst with Ty France. If you want to make a pivot situation with those two guys, obviously Ford's hitting for more power. He's got a 9.29 to France's 4.31. It's a rotation of Fs at the first base position for the Mariners today. You could go with both on the FanDuel slate too if you wanted in a funky configuration. If you told me you wanted to go like a Ty France, Cal Raleigh, Teoscar Hernandez, Mike Ford configuration, it's not the best version of a Mariners stack, but if you're building 15 of them, that could be in your portfolio, and it's very cheap. There's home run upside. All right, so no Kyle Tucker now in the Astros lineup is definitely a ding to the Astros. A little bit of a bump to Bryce Miller, who I like quite a bit. He projects out in the middle of the board, 8,300, 8,400. Not the greatest value price in the world, but certainly a better value fit than 87 and 97 on the other side for a lower projected JP France. It's a tougher matchup for Miller. He's given up a little bit too much in terms of the barrels at 10.4%, the exit velocity at 91.7, 3.53% home run rate, 4.04 ERA, 4.31 xFIP, but a 23.6% strikeout rate, 5.2% walks, 11.9% swinging strike rate, only a 1.05 whip. He's a very talented young pitcher. One of these excellent starters that the Mariners are developing in their system. Pitches to the organization's philosophy, with a decent strikeout rate and a very low walk rate, limiting opportunities for opposing hitters and trying to make them beat him on the mound rather than beating himself, as people say. Obviously, the Astros are an outrageously talented lineup, but no Tucker in there is definitely a downgrade. You do still have Jordan Alvarez to wrestle with. He's got a 13.99 that is either the second or third highest home run mark on the entire slate. 21 homers in 324 plate appearances at 293 ISO. One of the best overall power hitters in all of baseball. Alex Bregman and Jose Altuve not far behind him talent-wise at the top of the lineup. Altuve's a superstar second baseman. 6,200, 4,400, 9 home runs, 12 steals, a 167 WRC plus in his limited 229 plate appearances this year. The only thing that's limiting him from another superstar caliber season was the shortage of plate appearances from the injury. He's been excellent since he's come back. Bregman's hitting for power, not delivering everything else as typical Alex Bregman fashion, but at least still hitting for power. Jainer Diaz, playable catcher part for 3,500, 2,600, 16 home runs at 246 ISO. Definitely good enough to throw at Bryce Miller. He's got a 9.22 in the home run model today. John Singleton slots in. Ignore the 0 in the home run model. That's just because his career history hasn't been updated since he hit the home runs the other day. Was out of baseball for like 3 years. Came back, hit 2 home runs. It's a nicer story than it is a DFS play, if we're being honest about it. 64 plate appearances, a 52 WRC plus, 132, 66, 259. A big lefty bat who, if he connects, could certainly drive the ball. Not arguing with the obvious power. He's hit tons and tons of AAA home runs. Bryce Miller's a major league pitcher, not a AAA pitcher. I know he just came up this year from AAA. He's made 17 starts, but he's proven himself at this level. So I'm calling it on the Bryce Miller side of the equation rather than the John Singleton side. I don't love the option. Like I said, nicer story, I think, than a realistic option for our purposes. Could get there. If he's low owned, he's very cheap. If you're building a bunch of Astro stacks, I am not saying to skip him. I will have him in my Astro stacks. He's just a lower priority than guys like Chas McCormick in the lineup. I think Chas McCormick is a much better player. He obviously costs more. 12.4% barrel, 17 homers, 13 steals, a 154 WRC plus. Fits right in with the team theme for the Astros. Stealing signs, banging on trash cans. Their team theme. Cheating. I don't think they're doing that this year, but all teams are probably doing some form of it this year. But they haven't obviously been as outrageous as some of those years. But a lot of these guys just are super talented. I saw somebody tweeting angrily about, Jose Altuve's going to make the Hall of Fame and blah, 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 because they were stealing. Like, it's not the same as doing steroids, just knowing the sign. Like, there's gamesmanship about that built into the game for 150 years about stealing signs. You still have to hit the ball. Altuve is still an outrageously good Hall of Fame player. And this is from a Yankees fan. Jordan Alvarez is an outrageously good hitter. This is from a Yankees fan. So those are silly arguments to be made. Anyway, not that that's what anybody was arguing, except someone on Twitter who doesn't even know that I saw his tweet, and nobody involved with this show. A lot of lineups are dropping. I think we covered most of this one. Tough call. Um, Mariners, what does it come on the board? Let me see. I'll let the board dictate this one. Shit. All right. So the board has the Astros a little bit ahead with a 12th ranked collective projection, but the Mariners are right behind at 15. That's a very marginal difference with the way these averages come together. The Astros ranked 17th and 21st, but that was done with Tucker in the lineup for points per dollar value and a 5th rated home run mark. That was also done with Tucker in the lineup. Whereas the Mariners have a 14th and 13th ranked points per dollar value and a 9th ranked home run mark. I like the Mariners a little bit better, given the upside for value, given what I think is a better matchup against this pitcher who's going to allow a little bit more contact. Mariners bats, Astros bats, Bryce Miller. Not a real lot of interest in JP France. Couple darts if you want it. More on DK. Too expensive on FanDuel. We're making okay time. It's 5:30 for the delayed start, for the messy start that I screwed up at the beginning of the show on air and everything. We're kind of moving along here. Good thing we didn't have to talk about that Guardians-Cleveland game too many times. Will Quack says my favorite player is leading off in course. Uh-oh. Does that mean Charlie Blackmon's not in the leadoff spot and Jurgensen Profar is? That sucks. Goodness gracious. FanDuel went ahead and added Mason Wynn and Nolan Shanuel now. I checked that at like 3 o'clock or like 2:30 and they weren't in the player pool. That's such a pain in the ass. All right, we'll talk about it. I did fail to mention that at the top of the show. So Mason Wynn is in the DK slate originally at 2,000 at shortstop. I suspect he's probably pretty low priced with similar positional eligibility on the FanDuel slate. Mason Wynn is the Cardinals' top prospect. I'll pull up his minor league numbers real quick. I wasn't expecting to have to talk too in-depth about him. He's their top positional prospect, 18 home runs, 17 stolen bases, and 498 plate appearances in AAA this year. Last year at AA, 11 and 28. Created runs exactly at league average last year, 107 WRC plus this year despite all that output. Only a 187 ISO, 288, 359, 474. Definitely looks like a player and obviously slots in at very low pricing at a key position. So I think going to Cardinals bats, I think he's definitely in play here. Let's grab the confirm lineup. Cards. And a confirmed lineup for the Mets. That's a funky Mets lineup. Yowza. All right. 2-hitter Tim LeCastro. That's an interesting move. So I talked about Zach Thompson briefly at the top when we were looking quickly at the pitching board. One start, 25 innings, 31.2% strikeout rate, but 11% walks. Hasn't really given up much premium contact or power in mostly relief appearances. A 3.96 ERA with a 2.77 xFIP on the short season. I don't really know what to make of it too much. 19.9% strikeout rate and 34 2/3, including one start last year, so a similarly sized sample last year. I think there's an innings cap of around 5 innings. He made 9 starts in AAA, but then he's been working mostly in relief, multi-inning relief since mid-July when he came back up. He went 2 outings back. He went 4 innings against the Rockies. Struck out 8 of 15 Rockies, allowed an earned run on a walk and 2 hits. Then he went 4 innings of bulk relief against the Royals, struck out 5, allowed a solo homer, 3 other hits, faced 16 hitters. If he goes 5 with that kind of strikeout upside against a diminished version of the Mets lineup, there's some appeal here for 5,600, 6,200. Probably more as an SP2 dart on the DK slate for value, just price-based value. Give me even 4 innings at that price almost, with a handful of strikeouts if he gets through it clean. Obviously, we want the 5. We want to chase the win with the Cardinals upside against Joey Lucchesi here. But I think there's a little bit there for Zach Thompson, and he projects like it. Like I said, that's a 4.5 inning projection. So, yeah, not really sure what to make of that one. I don't know how much of it I'll have on FanDuel because I don't think we're getting 6. 6 would be an outrageous amount of depth. Going up against the lineup that's got Brandon Nimmo at the top, that still does have Pete, Francisco through the heart of the lineup. But now we've got Tim LeCastro hitting second, Jeff McNeil 6, Danny Mendick 7, Rafael Ortega and Jonathan Aruz bringing up the bottom of the lineup for super cheap prices. Wow. Locastro over the last 2 seasons, minor amount of plate appearances last year, 46 plate appearances, 186, 239, 349. Has a little bit of speed if he gets on, 8 stolen bases in the small sample. Year before, 180, 263, 252, 44 WRC plus in 156 plate appearances with 5 stolen bases. I get that he's fast, but that's not a good reason to hit him at the top of the lineup. That's not a good reason to hit him second. Kind of surprised they didn't just hit him leadoff. Nimmo is a terrific option hitting leadoff, 4,500, 3,000. Very good on base percentage, excellent hard hits, good home run total at 17 in 520 plate appearances. Still good correlation with Pete Alonso, Francisco Lindor, and Francisco Alvarez, the team's power core, which is right here. All three of those guys are too cheap. 53.37 for Pete, 5,000, 3,600 for Francisco. They're more too cheap on the DK slate. They're more discounted on DK. 4,028 for Alvarez. 3 excellent power bats. Alvarez has cooled a little bit. 21 home runs on the season still. 222, 290, 464. All we really care about is the home run hunting with that play, especially a catcher on the DK slate when we can go to it, especially against a kid who might leave some contact on the board for us. We truly don't know. We haven't seen enough of Thompson in a stretched out opportunity to truly know what he might do in terms of the available contact, the available power here. So I do think taking some of those Mets righty power bats makes some sense. Pete has 37 home runs, a 305 ISO, a monster power bat, over 482 plate appearances. Lindor, 22 homers, 20 stolen bases, looks a lot like Francisco Lindor in the things that we care about. Mendick, not a good option. Ortega, as we saw yesterday, had the decent year 2 years ago. 330 plate appearances 2 years ago, 11 homers, 12 steals, and a pretty good triple slash with a 120 ISO, or a 120 WRC plus 2 years ago. For anybody who missed yesterday's show, talking about one of the lowest end players on the entire slate. Very lousy from here down. Very lousy here. So there's 4 playable bats that I like in this lineup, and then you're mixing and matching. McNeil's probably your best bet for your mix and match shares. 3,700, 2,700. Unlucky season, no BABIP to speak of, only a 331 on base, a 257 average. If he gets on 3 times, or if he manages to connect with guys on base, he can obviously provide a little bit of value. That's your best value bet there. Joey Lucchesi coming back up to the show. Joey's been pitching in AAA a little bit. Where is it? I just wanted to read it out of the article because I thought it would be easier. Over 11 AAA starts, a 3.99 ERA, but a 4.69 xFIP, 22.3% strikeouts, 10.6% walks. 6,700, a very low-end dart throw at best. At best, you're hoping for like league average pitcher ceiling, and I don't even think that's really there for this lefty going up against the heavily right-handed Cardinals, who I kind of like. I don't really like it. 8,000, I think he's just off the board for value on FanDuel. That just doesn't make much sense to me. Not a high-end pitcher anyway. And in the 5 starts, 22 and a third in the major leagues this year, a 4.43 ERA, giving up plenty of barrels, 11.8% barrels, 4.30% home runs, tons of walks. I just don't see it for Lucchesi here. So I think we're firing away again with Cardinals bats in one of the more frustrating teams in the league. All this positive WRC plus. They can't win ball games. A lot of good home run hitters, a lot of decent on base guys. They can't win ball games. They can't win DFS slates. I don't know what the hell is going on. They should be a better team than they are. Tommy Edman, I do like off the top, 4,100, 2,900 triple position eligible on the FanDuel slate. Gives you tons of value. 11 homers, 15 steals. Having a very Tommy Edman-like kind of a season. Inconsistent with the bat, but a good producer of counting stats and a very good correlation play with Goldschmidt, Arenado, Wilson Contreras, Tyler O'Neill, who flashed some power, 3,600, 2,700, 7th home run last night, a 171 ISO, 101 WRC plus. That was, I think, the only positive thing that happened for the Cards last night. 12.8% barrels, 44.4% hard hits. Tyler O'Neill is a massive power hitter when he is going right. Wilson Contreras, very good catcher option. 3,900, 2,700, 123 WRC plus on the season. 13 long balls hitting cleanup in this spot behind Goldschmidt and Arenado, who are stars on the opposite corners of the infield. I think you guys just know that. I don't think I need to sell those two guys. Jordan Walker, decent rookie season, 11 homers, a 106 WRC plus. Luken Baker, 2,200, 2,000. You're not going to use him instead of Paul Goldschmidt all that often at first base, but he does have some sneaky power potential for that low price. So not off the board for power play for Luken Baker. Jose Thurman, Mason Wynn. Wynn, as I was saying, their top overall prospect, does apparently have eligibility on FanDuel now. Ignore that he doesn't appear in the model or anything. That's because he wasn't on the FanDuel slate earlier, and I do not have time to fix it. At worst, he's going to be a good mix-in from the bottom of the lineup. That looks like a killer wraparound play to me. If you wanted to tell me you were going to skip Tommy Edman, put Mason Winn at shortstop for the dead minimum, use him as a wraparound play for 1,900 less, I think that's a pretty smart move on that DK slate because that opens up access to like a Goldie, Arenado, Contreras, O'Neill straight line. Kind of like that. It's like this is pretty good. Or even if you didn't like O'Neill, wanted to save a couple bucks and go to Jordan Walker. If you wanted to get really creative, try to stretch it out and go to Luke and Baker. That's an even less expensive stack. That stack costs 19.3, average of 3,800, and it includes Goldschmidt and Arenado. Not bad. Cards lost Lars Nootbaar to the injured list, which sucks. All right, we talked about everything in this one. So this is got to go Cards bats. Oddly, I think Zach Thompson value darts. Few Mets stacks, primarily around Nimmo, Alonso, Lindor, and Alvarez. And then no real love for Joey Lucchesi for me at all. Anybody got a read or any different opinions on Jeffers scratch for Mini now? Jeez. Pain in the ass. Gonna have to remember to update all these lineups when we go. Dennis says, seems like LeCastro has a game every year where he scores 40 fantasy points. That is absolutely true. Absolutely. Pretty much all of the stats that we saw him accrue in those samples all came in like one game each of those years. I am exaggerating, but yeah, those are like, he doubled, like a double, a triple, 2-3 stolen bases, and a handful of runs kind of a game. Just a really odd duck, needs to lace one down the line and beat it out with his legs kind of a play. That is not, in my mind, a good reason to go to him. The fact that he's hitting second for that Mets lineup at the dead minimum on both sides does give him value. Don't get me wrong. I said Jeff McNeil's probably the best bolt-on, but given the value spot in the lineup, given the correlation spot in the lineup, it probably is actually LeCastro. Fair point. Not because he has those games every now and then. Was Lucchesi scratched too? Jesus. Freaking Jeezy Creasy, as Eddie Izzard says. This is a mess. Lab still has Lucchesi up. I can't imagine the Mets are bringing in anybody that's better than that. If they brought Tom Seaver ahead in time from the 1960s, let me know. I can't imagine anything else coming out of the Mets bullpen is going to be better than Joey Lucchesi. So either way, I think we're firing away with Cards bats. Let me know who's getting in there. Yeah, Tommy, no, I know you're asking. There was a question mark on it and everything, bud. I'm not yelling at you. I'm yelling at the slate and just the universe. It's not if I'm being a little overly aggressive with my tone. I was not directed in your direction, pal. And please, definitely always point those things out to me, even if I react poorly. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already done it. The Discord is free. It should be linked in the bottom of the description down there. If that link's broken, let me know. I'll get you a new one. Hit me up on Twitter if you need it. I'll get you into the Discord, or anybody else can help you out. Shane Hall made the Alonso call last night with the Pete Alonso long ball. Not too bad. He called it for the first inning. It was in the second at bat, but we'll take it anyway. What's up, Shane? If there's anybody out there I haven't said hi to today, I have been trying to get through and make some good time. It is 5:45. We've got a couple games to go. Obviously, we're going beyond 6 o'clock today, but I'm going to try and wrap us in a decent little amount of time. Yeah, Den, I don't disagree. Definitely a little path toward getting to Strider shares by using Tim LeCastro there. That applies to any of these mid-price guys. The Mason Winn play on the other side with the Cards, certainly. Similar kind of a thing. All right. Over 6 o'clock is a lock, says Bo DJ Stoner. Yeah, absolutely, buddy. I think we knew that coming in. I think we knew that when we had the 4:20 start time. All right, we did this one kind of top to bottom. Yeah, obviously don't play Joey Lucchesi if he doesn't pitch. White Sox and the Rockies. Fortunately, we do not have to talk about pitching in this one in my mind. Nobody wants to go to Kopech in this park, do they? I don't see it. There's obviously his side of the equation. If you're comparing the two pitchers in the Coors Field game, Kopech is your man. He's got much more strikeout upside. He's going up against a worse lineup. Even though the White Sox have sucked this year, there's obviously a ton more talent in that White Sox lineup. The Sox actually do lead the slate, or did. Let me see who's still in the lineup. Yep. All right. So we're seeing monster power numbers for the White Sox here. Actually, even higher now that Trace Thompson is in the bottom of the lineup. A little bit of course field impact there. A lot of Peter Lambert impact there. 10.6% barrels, 44.4% hard hits, a 4.67% home run rate for Lambert, 5.46 ERA, 4.88 xFIP. Do not play Peter Lambert on either site, even at 53,600. I don't see it. Projects at a 10. That's difficult to do. 10 in 4.5 innings. That's difficult to do. Kopech on the other side, a little bit better on the projection. Like I said, definitely better strikeout upside at 23.4%. Do you really want to tangle with the 5.46 xFIP, a 4.58 ERA, 5.04% home run rate, all this premium contact against a Rockies team that was actually favored in this game earlier in the day? Might still be. Haven't checked it in a little while, but they were carrying a 6.2 in Vegas, and the White Sox were at 5.9. This is a bats kind of a game. It's a Coors Field game, so you're taking it as you normally would, whatever your preferred approach to Coors Field is. I don't really tend to make recommendations one way or another as far as if you want to undercut it, want to get overexposed to it. I do think it looks like a very good opportunity to roster some White Sox bats. They've underperformed the entire season. I'm sure they're going to be popular. They're easy to afford. Luis Robert Jr. is a superstar at 5,700, 4,400. Everybody else on the lineup has been meh to limited to bad. You do get Andrew Vaughn's power in there. He's got a 13.68 in the model. You've got Gavin Sheets in there at 10.87. So actually we replaced Eloy Jimenez. That's what I didn't notice. We replaced Eloy Jimenez with Thompson and Gavin Sheets in the lineup. So we traded one power bat for two. It's okay. Eloy Jimenez is better than both Gavin Sheets and Trace Thompson. He's probably better than both of those guys put together when he's healthy. But I'll take both of those power bats at cheap prices late in the lineup. Sheets, lefty power, 3,000, 2,800. Joe Moncada, semi-playable at 4,000, 3,000. Then we got Grandal, Thompson, Lennon Sosa. Kind of a limited bottom end when it comes to Lennon Sosa, when it comes to Yasmani Grandal. Grandal is a playable part at catcher, but given his talent at this point in his career, like his ownership will be at worst correct at Coors Field and probably a little high. And then, of course, my favorite player is somebody in the chat mentioned, Elvis Andrus, leading off for the White Sox today with no Tim Anderson in the lineup. Yeah, he sucks. 292 on base percentage, a .088 ISO, a 68 WRC plus, 230, 292, 318. If anybody can fail 4 times in Coors Field, it's Elvis Andrus. If you want a similar comp, like look at Jerks and Profar on the other side. They're similar contributors, and Profar's played most of his games in Coors Field, or half his games in Coors Field. He's at 241, 320, 370 for the season, 75 WRC plus, 8 home runs on the season. There's not a lot to like in Profar's line down here. That was the guy I thought you meant when you said my favorite hitters leading off. Charlie Blackmon does get the leadoff spot for the Rockies. That's a much better leadoff hitter than they've had for most of the season. 252 plate appearances. Charlie's got a 357 on base. A little bit of reliable left-handed ability. More of a hit tool and on-base guy than a power bat these days. 160 ISO, 102 WRC plus, 5 homers on the season. Tovar's gotten himself up to 13 homers, pulling himself up to a semi-respectable rookie season. 27.6% strikeouts is too high. 4,800 is probably a very high price on the DK slate. 33 is a little bit better relatively on FanDuel. Just marginally better, really, relatively. Ryan McMahon, exactly at league average overall creating runs, but does have a lot of power as a lefty against righties. 20 home runs on the season, a 212 ISO. Brendan Rodgers, Nolan Jones, Elias Diaz, Toglia, and Brenton Doyle at the bottom of the lineup. So no Eleudris Montero at the bottom of the lineup. Toglia's got reasonable expectations of being a good power hitter. 2 home runs in 114 plate appearances, but also way below the Mendoza line and sitting on a 12 WRC plus. So he hasn't been good in his limited opportunities. Doyle, 8 home runs, 15 stolen bases, a 41 WRC plus. Very inconsistent, well below the Mendoza line. Profar, I just talked about. Diaz is a reliably playable catcher. 45, though, you're probably going to walk into some ownership. You're walking into a somewhat hefty price for a kid with 11 homers, but only an 80 WRC plus, only a 146 ISO, 6.6% barrels. Some of it is a little bit unrealistic contributions. Nolan Jones I like a lot of strikeouts, but realistic power, 12 home runs, 7 stolen bases, a 229 ISO, 15.6% barrels, 44.4% hard hits. Bats all day on both sides. Take them as you will relative to the field. 2 lousy teams going up against lousy pitching. I expect the bats to win the day here. I expect there to be some scoring, But given the lousy nature of the teams, like it might fall short of like if it hits the run total relative to some other spots that could go off. If it hits a run total of 12 and like any one of these other spots goes off like crazy, then you're maybe limited. And 12 is 6 and change runs for each of these teams, or 5 and change 5 runs and 6 runs, or 5 runs and 7 runs. Like there's some DFS possibility there, but you're not talking about a bunch of home runs in that kind of a game. You need the White Sox to really deliver. And I expect there's going to be a lot of people in that spot. Let's move on. That's enough about Coors. 4 games to go. Jeezy crazy. All right. Angels lineup. Nolan Schanuel leading off. All right, so Nolan Schanuel was the first call up from this year's draft class. The one that happened a few weeks ago. Spent about 6 weeks in the minor leagues in Double-A. Was absolutely raking. So they just brought him up to the show after 6 weeks in the minors. Very early promotion. They also did that with Zach Neto. He was the first guy promoted from the class before. Kid's obviously very good. He's not in this model because he was not earlier in the pool earlier. He has no major league stats to speak of so far. In the minors, in his tiny sample in the minors, 75 plate appearances, a home run, 15 runs, 12 ribbies, a stolen base, 339, 480, 475, 163 WRC plus. Was kind of killing it. So it's a, at worst, playable opportunity now that he's on the slate. Don't know if he's on the DK slate. If he is, he's playable. It's a great spot. One of the better spots in all of baseball for correlated scoring, hitting ahead of Shohei Ohtani. Mickey Moniak drops in the lineup, 4,200, 2,900. I still like him for his lefty power. 279, 309, 502 was displaying a much better hit tool earlier in the year and has cooled off realistically down to more true numbers. But I think the power is kind of real here. 13.7% barrels to back that up, 223 ISO and 262 plate appearances. So I like Moniak hiding down here. Logan O'Hoppe returning to the lineup. Look at that. Made it back. 2,800, 2,000. Power hitting catcher. 4 home runs and 59 plate appearances before he got hurt early in the season. Was kind of an interesting option early in the year, a guy we were looking at a little bit. It was no real track record. 16 plate appearance, cup of coffee the year before. So everything based on this year. But a kid they were expecting to hit for power and be their catcher all year long just got derailed by that injury. But very cheap, hitting 5th. Interesting righty power bat to work into the mix here for the Angels because they needed more right-handed power, obviously. Weird. Mike Moustakas, been productive, 3,200, 2,600, first and third base eligible. Plenty of left-handed power to throw at Erasmo Ramirez. We're not really going to Ramirez on the other side of this one, by the way. Ohtani's obvious. Brandon Drury, a little bit of a dip, been stuck at 15 home runs for a minute, but still a 108 WRC plus, still a terrific right-handed power hitter. Hunter Renfroe, stuck at 17 home runs. We are firmly on the Hunter Renfroe 18th home run of the season watch. I think he's got a good shot at it in this matchup. 7.75 in the home run model. He's one of the better power hitting righties in baseball over the last couple of seasons. I've been saying this for weeks now. 77 home runs since the start of the 2021 campaign. I can't wait to start saying 78 home runs. Luis Rengifo, Randall Grichuk, 2 very good bats to find at the bottom of the lineup. This lineup plays oddly 1 through 9. I kind of like this spot for the Angels. I also like the spot for the Rays. This was a bats on both sides situation. Vegas had it as a pick 'em early in the day. Both teams totaled at 5.05 implied runs. Tyler Anderson on the Angels side of things has a more believable track record, a more stretched out full-time starter, 109 innings, 18.9% strikeouts, walks way too many at almost 10%, 5.28 ERA, 5.36 xFIP. Doesn't give up a ton of premium power, but does have a high launch angle. So I think the Rays have an opportunity to hit some home runs against him. Some of it is coming through in the model. Some of it is coming through in terms of fantasy points. There's plenty of believable upside for the Rays, regardless of basically who is in this lineup. Yandy Diaz, 5,200, 3,600, outrageous all season, getting on base at a 400 clip, creating runs 58% better than average. Price is down a bit from where it was earlier, so I like that option. 55 for 36 for Rosarena, who climbs up the lineup in the absence of Wander Franco. 18 home runs, 15 stolen bases, 27% better than average creating runs on the season. Another very strong Randy Rosarena season, although he's also cooled a little bit in terms of the counting stat output. A lot of weight on his shoulders right now. Harold Ramirez, a pretty good line drive hitter, for 3,100, 2,600, especially if he's hitting third in the heart of this lineup, I really like that option for those prices. That's a good, capable line drive hitter who will just keep the lineup moving, is capable of knocking in runs, doesn't strike out very much, hits the ball consistently fairly hard, just not on a great launch angle, doesn't rack up a ton of barrels. The 9 home runs early in the season were kind of weird output for him. He's been at that mark for most of the season, but still sitting 298, 345, 441, creating runs 22% better than average. Isaac Paredes and Jose Siri, tons and tons of value. Siri in the outfield for fair prices, 23 home runs and only 298 plate appearances. And then Isaac Paredes multi-position for 4,000 on DK, triple position for 31 on FanDuel. Crazy value for him. 242 ISO, 40% better than average creating runs, stretched out over 414 plate appearances now. This is turning into a real sample. 23 home runs. He's been very, very good for this team this year. Curtis Mead, 2,200 on both sides at third base. Not ideal positioning in terms of like relative to all the other third basemen on the slate, but another kid who's a premium prospect expected to hit a little bit at this level, has not done so far. 238, 304, 238 with a no ISO in 23 plate appearances. Let's give him a little bit of a moment to catch his breath at the major league level. Speaking of catching your breath, Christian Bradencourt, Olisvis Basabe, Rene Pinto at the bottom of the lineup. Mix and match parts for very, very cheap prices at best. Angels bats, Rays bats. Two very good options on this slate in my mind. They ranked out third for the Angels by points by projections, first by FanDuel points per dollar, second by DK points per dollar, and second by home run upside. That was when we had Mickey Moniak pulling a slightly better number in the leadoff spot, but still very, very good looking opportunity for them. And then the Rays on the other side dropped to 13th by projections, but again, the middle board is very, very tight from like, you know, the Mets, the Orioles, the Phillies, down through like the Rays, the Brewers, the Mariners. All those teams are essentially the same projections wise. That's something to keep in mind when you look at this board. Like a lot of those averages are very negligible differences. 8th by points per dollar on FanDuel, 5th by points per dollar on DK for the Rays, 14th ranked by home run upside. So like I said, Angels bats, Rays bats, neither one of the pitchers for me. If anybody's got a good reason to play Tyler Anderson or Erasmo Ramirez, toss it into the chat and we'll consider it. But Ramirez doesn't strike anybody out. It's going to be giving up a ton of contact. Maybe not premium contact, but lots of contact to that elite Angels lineup. Shohei Ohtani on his own might beat that guy tonight. We grab the Pods lineups. Oh, excuse me. We're doing the Oakland and Baltimore game first. Sounds good. We've got most of the lineups for the entire slate in, which is good because it's 6 o'clock. This is the Oakland lineup, or the Baltimore lineup. Really like the spot for the Orioles tonight. Remember when I mentioned that there was another AL East team holding down my placeholder? That's the one. Who saw Luis Medina in that last start? Failed to run to first base with the ball in his glove and failed to take the ball out of his glove and throw it to first base to allow a base hit in pathetic fashion. Talk about embarrassing yourself in an already embarrassing season. That highlight was all over the place. Every highlight show, every newspaper, every Twitter feed. Stupid. One of the more boneheaded plays I've seen in baseball in a long time. Little tiny comebacker. Tap, tap. Good little play with the glove on the mound. Starts jogging over toward first base like pitchers do, and you expect halfway there he'll just soft toss it over to the first baseman, just wants to get a little closer so there's no chance of screwing it up, no chance anything could go wrong. The runner just beat him to first base. He never threw the ball. He just jogged his way over. It's the dumbest thing I've seen in a long, long time. 6,800, 7,000 for kind of a nothing pitcher. 22.1% strikeouts is fine. That's okay, but a 5.31 ERA, a 4.59 xFIP, and 11.5% walk rate going up against these very, very good Orioles. 3.20% home runs was a little bit more targetable for power early in the season. 40.4% hard hits. Short starts in a lot of his outings. 83 innings and 13 starts. Not a ton of depth. Maybe a dart throw at 68 on DK if you really want to do it, if you're an Athletics fan or whatever. If you're a fan of former mediocre Yankees prospects, go for it, but I don't really see it. I'm not going there. Orioles side of things, I am going to be invested in for sure. Given the ridiculous walk rate, I think that a guy like Adley Rutschman off the top can really frustrate this pitcher. 15.1% strikeouts, 13% walks. These guys are going to just wait on their pitches. So either they're going to wait it out and hit for power, or they're going to draw walks against this guy. Adley's got 16 home runs, a 157 ISO, a 119 WRC+, plus, is one of the most valuable catchers in the game. Arguably the most valuable catcher in the game given his young age and his just general amazing ability in real life. Fantastic asset for them. Gunnar was the home run pick of the day, if I'm remembering correctly from hours and hours ago. 4,600, 3,000. Shortstop eligible, lost his third base eligibility on DK. Still has it on the FanDuel slate. 19 homers on the season, a 217 ISO from the left side of the plate. Just an excellent opportunity for home runs. 9.47 in the home run model. Sits second on the team behind Anthony Santander, who's at 9.53. Both sides of the plate for him, 4,000, 3,000. Really cheap. I honestly don't know why that hitter costs that cheap on both sides. 247, 323, 460. It's okay for a guy who hits for as much reliable power as he does. He's at a 114 WRC plus, so 14% better than average creating runs, 46.1% hard hits. And none of this is weird. He had 33 home runs last year, 33 home runs the year before. This is a really good, reliable power hitter for years. I don't understand why he's only 4,000, 3,000 in the heart of a good lineup against a bad pitcher. It's a killer spot for value. Ryan Mountcastle, 3,800, 3,000. Another guy, killer spot for value. 8.56 in the home run model. Excellent premium contact, 14.1% barrels, 47.8% hard hits. He's turned that into 16 home runs, a 205 ISO, and 368 chances. Dynamite contact, dynamite option in the heart of the lineup. Ryan O'Hearn drops to fifth. Lefty bat, still hitting well. 10 homers, 300, 340, 507, a 206 ISO. As I've said many times, as long as the price stays where it is at 31.26, first base and outfield eligible, lefty in the middle of the lineup with all those righties, absolutely can play him. Also a lefty in the middle of the lineup for much higher prices. 43 though on DK is still very cheap for his talent. 35 on FanDuel is correct. Cedric Mullins, 10 home runs, 15 steals in half a season. He's a 30-30 player. 30-30 talent is delivering in his exposure this year. Just has been a little bit derailed by injuries this year. Austin Hayes, very good option at 32.27, 11 home runs from the right side. Down to 279, 321, 442, more of a realistic Austin Hayes kind of a year at this point. The power's limited, it's infrequent, but I do think he's a playable part. Frazier, more home runs this year than in the last 2 years put together. Westberg, a believable output with 2 home runs, 3 stolen bases in 130 plate appearances. 3,300, 2,500 multi-position eligible. Much better option than like the Jorge Mateos of the world at the bottom of the lineup. Orioles stack 1 through 9 in my mind. I'm going to have a pretty good amount of them. And Kyle Gibson. This is problematic. 4.89 ERA, 4.17 xFIP, a 19.6% strikeout rate for the season. Very good at limiting contact, 7.4% barrels, 2.44% home runs. Little hard hits, little bit of exit velo, but as long as he's keeping the barrels and keeping the incidental contact down, keeping the home runs down, we're okay with it. And I think that's all we really need to say we can go to them against this Athletics team. If you take the home runs away from them, the infrequent home runs that they do hit, there's not much left. They don't do much else. It's not like they correlate really well with one another. It's not like they've got a ton of aggressively good on-base guys. Average on-base percentage for this Athletics starting lineup, 288. Who was it that we were talking about before that had the 350? This is a bad baseball team. Kyle Gibson is on the board. 8,200 is a great value price on DK. Strong option for DK value at SP2. I think you can use him as a cheap SP1 over there. 9,900, I'm happy to pay it on the FanDuel slate. It's aggressively high. It's a matchup-based price on FanDuel, but they got it right. That's the correct price for this pitcher in this matchup. Has been a little bit better for strikeouts over time, but was 20% each of the last 2 years. Not really pitching all that differently from who he's been over the last couple of seasons. So I do think there's upside for Kyle Gibson in this spot. I'm going to have some. My hope is that he goes a little bit under the radar, but probably not since it's a matchup against the Orioles. If you want to go to O stacks as a hedge position, there's a little bit of value there. Zach Gelof's obviously been outrageous, but now he's up to 5,400, 4,000. 294, 353, 633 with a 339 ISO and a 170 WRC plus, 8 homers, 7 stolen bases, and 119 plate appearances. That is incredible production in the small sample. 14.5% barrels, 46.1% hard hits. It's somewhat realistic. The power is pretty expected. He's overperforming for sure, but at least it's nice to see. Good story for this team. Rooker, Seth Brown, Jordan Diaz, playable parts through the middle of the lineup. Rooker's been stalled at 19 home runs. He hits like 1 or 2, then stalls out for like 2 or 3 weeks. Still an aggressively high 30.7% strikeout rate. Take or leave him. Inconsistent power bat at best. Seth Brown, good lefty power. Believable upside against Kyle Gibson here. If he puts bat on ball, it could be a problem for Kyle Gibson. 11 home runs for him on the season. 264 plate appearances, a 194 ISO. Then you get into the bottom of the lineup with Diaz, Soderstrom. The last three guys are really low end. Diaz and Soderstrom are playable. Soderstrom's a premium catcher prospect. He's got 2 home runs in a small sample. He's put bat on ball fairly well at a 40.4% hard hit rate. Diaz has a 48.1% hard hit rate for cheap, 8 home runs in 191 plate appearances. Only a 101 nice WRC plus though, so not a priority bat, but an okay bat. Tony Kemp, Langoliers, Nick Allen. Langoliers is my favorite option down there, given the sneaky catcher power, but he's super inconsistent. The other guys are just bad. Nick Allen's an okay defender, but not really a hitter. Tony Kemp's just bad. Baltimore bats with a bullet. Kyle Gibson right behind him. No love for Oakland on either side, but I think a few hedge stacks are probably in order, especially if you get overexposed to Kyle Gibson. 2 to go. 2 to go. Let's grab the, whatever this team is called. The Snakes. Diamondbacks and the Padres. We'll start on the easy side. I think we can throw Padres bats at Brandon Pfaadt. We've seen him struggle through most of this season. We know that the Padres have some excellence at the top of their lineup. A couple scuffling veterans, a couple outrageously talented veterans, good mix of prices. I think there's plenty of potential for the Padres here against Brandon Pfaadt, who has a 20.5% strikeout rate in 54 2/3 innings over 11 starts, a 5.74% home run rate, 44.9% hard hits, 10.8% barrels, a 6.91 ERA, a 4.55 xFIP. Let's just roster Padres against Brandon Pfaadt and not really worry about it. It's a dynamite start. He did have a okay start his last time out. Same Padres. He struck out 8 of 27. He allowed 3 runs on a pair of walks, 9 hits, but no home runs. That's the ceiling. That is the ceiling for Brandon Pfaadt in this start. And I don't think he gets there. If he goes out and strikes out more than 8 hitters, pitches a clean sheet, goes like 7-8 in, like I would be absolutely floored tonight. I know he just did it against this team last time out. I do not care. Padres are going to get him this time. He's a good prospect pitcher, but he just needs polish. He just hasn't shown it at the major league level at all outside of that start. So I'm not hanging anything on that one. I'm going to Padres bats. Ha-Seong Kim, career year, 15 homers, 27 steals, 28% better than average creating runs, 373 on base, puts him in great correlated scoring position with the core of stars. Tatis, Soto, Machado, and Bogarts are stars. All 4 of them. You can argue about which ones are better than which. In my opinion, it goes Soto, Tatis, probably Machado, Bogarts, maybe Bogarts, Machado, depending on how you look at it. But they are star caliber players. Tons of home run power. Soto's got a 57.1% hard hit rate. Tatis has a 50.3, 19 homers to Soto's 24. He's got 22 stolen bases. Soto's got 6. 119 WRC plus to 147. 202 ISO to a 232. That's where Soto, in my mind, kind of pulls apart. And then the 19.3% walks. Obviously, that supports the on-base percentage, the run creation mark, to the 7.5% walks. Juan Soto is a phenomenal ball player. Machado, very cheap for his talent, 5,100. 35 is only a few hundred cheap, but 51 is pretty cheap for him on the DK slate over there. Bogarts is definitely cheap. 270, 345, 397, not all that far off the mark for quality. 108 WRC plus, 12 homers, 13 steals. Totally playable at the shortstop spot. You get triple position on Ha-Seong Kim on FanDuel, and he's a second baseman on DK, so you don't worry about positional conflicts at the top of the lineup. Cronenworth has underperformed this season, 95 WRC plus, after posting, I think, like a 108 last year. Gary Sanchez has exceeded some people's expectations. He's exactly met my expectations over 222 plate appearances. 16 home runs at 278 ISO, 15.2% barrels, 45.5% hard hits. I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. Gary Sanchez is a major league hitter. This is exactly who he is. There are no surprises here. You just go to him, you're home run hunting. 24.8% strikeout rate, cheap catcher bat at the bottom of the lineup. Garrett Cooper, interesting option at first base, 2,600, 2,500. No positional conflict in this lineup, except for Jake Cronenworth, who I don't really care. 98 WRC plus, 14 home runs in 348 plate appearances, mostly with Miami earlier in the season. But a pickup that they made that kind of went under the radar, that is a very capable major league bat lurking at the bottom of the lineup. So that's a sneaky play for power. Trent Grisham, little bit of on-base skill, or a little bit of stolen base skill, a little bit of power upside. Limited player overall, 97 WRC plus, but he's absolutely part of my plans. Padres play from top to bottom against Brandon Pfaadt today. That is difficult to say. The Diamondbacks going up against Seth Lugo. Lugo projects in that value tier, that value plateau. 27-point FanDuel projection. Can't ignore it. 23.2% hard strikeout rate, 4.16 ERA, 3.62 xFIP. Not great with swinging strikes or CSW, giving up a little bit of premium contact, a little bit of power. I feel like it's more of a both-sided situation. Might be one of those limited situations where he has an impact on them. They have an impact on him. Nobody really wins out. But I'm seeing more on the Diamondback side of the equation than on the Lugo side. And if I've got all these options that look similar to work with, I'm happy to kind of take a few shares, but mostly forgo Lugo and take out some shares of the Diamondbacks, particularly if they go a little bit unpopular on this slate. They are ranking out pretty well for power upside, given the premium contact that Lugo's allowing. They rank 7th on the board for power, 8th overall by fantasy point projection, so that's also pretty good. 7th by FanDuel points per dollar, but they dropped to 14th by DK points per dollar because a couple of these guys are still a little bit more relatively expensive, as are 45, 41 for some of these guys where they drop on the FanDuel scale. So the top end is really what you want from this lineup. Corbin Carroll, Ketel Marte, Tommy Pham, Christian Walker, Lourdes Gurriel. That's a dynamite 1 through 5. Carroll's cooled off a little bit, but he's still having an outrageous season overall. The numbers we looked at yesterday against lefties are not a consideration here against Lugo. You get Carroll on the high side of splits. Definitely a strong option at 5,900, 3,800. Ketel Marte back in the lineup, 56-34, 19 homers, 6 steals. Obviously a tremendous second base option. Pham, excellent contact skills, 12 home runs, 14 stolen bases, a 341 ISO, 341 on base percentage, 203 ISO, 122 WRC plus. Fits in really well with the team theme. Fairly low strikeout rate, hits the ball very hard, good barrel rate, gets himself on base, provides correlated scoring opportunities for his teammates. Just a very good pickup that fits in with their team theme quite well. Christian Walker, very low strikeout rate, very good home run upside, 10.60 in the model. Him and Corbin Carroll are above the magic number. Ketel Marte is right there. Pham's at a respectable mark, so is Lourdes Gurriel. Gurriel's hitting for power, but not that much average this season. I'll take it, though. 209 ISO, 105 WRC+. Happy to take the power bat at a little bit of a discount, 45, 3,000. Cheap enough. Jace Peterson doesn't really fit in with the team theme. 6 home runs, 218, 313, 312, 80 WRC+. A playable bat for sneaky lefty pop from time to time. Alec Thomas, lefty, kind of limited, 7 home runs, 6 steals. The skill set is supposed to be moderate power and some stolen bases. Inconsistent, very inconsistent. Gabe Moreno, 2,600, 2,200, playable catcher. 268, 311, 370, 83 WRC+, 4 home runs, 4 steals. And then Geraldo Perdomo at the bottom of the lineup does get on at a 367 clip, a 112 WRC+ for the season. So I think he's a playable wraparound play back up to the top of the lineup. Playable positionally, second base and shortstop for cheap pricing on both sites. Padres bats, Diamondbacks bats. Seth Lugo as a minor mix-in for value for me. Seth Lugo does have more appeal, by the way, on the DK slate at 75. There's definitely more value at that point, an 88 on the FanDuel slate. So a little bit more interest in Lugo on the DK slate. At least a also ran type of a mixer on the DK slate. Brandon Fatno. Is this the last game? Oh, this is the last game, and it's 6:15. Boy, oh boy. Shane Hall likes the Padres. Sanchez is in there as the catcher. I like that. Let's see. What lineups do we have? I don't have either of the lineups in the last game. If they've dropped on other sites, apologies, but we're going to fly through this one. Sandy Alcantara, been a little bit limited this year. As we've talked about a bunch of times with Sandy, even in his amazing year last year, he was more of a compiler over 223 innings. That's how he got all the strikeout total. He was only a 23 and change percent strikeout rate pitcher. So the 20.8% is a dip this year, but it's not as crazy a dip as one might think, given how good he was last year versus the middling up and down kind of a guy he's been this year in 24 starts. Still giving you good depth, 158 in the third and 24 outings, but has been a lot more limited on the mound this season. Has had definite outbursts of that's the old Sandy Alcantara quality, including in the last game. I think he went complete game in the last game. 10 strikeout complete game against the Yanks, but it was against the Yanks. That was the one that stuck in the old brain here. So, I think he's worth at least some darts. They're not value darts. They're just quality darts with Sandy Alcantara. But again, you're going against the Dodgers. I know that we just had Corbin Burnes succeed in the spot yesterday. I know that probably burnt some of us, me included. I did not have enough of him, and he was the key to victory on that stupid short slate last night. It just became a point of he's got just aggressively more fantasy points. And with, I think it was the Dodgers game going like 1-0 with that Austin Barnes home run. Just no equivalent spots. Like the winners on FanDuel had zeros in their lineup. So there were just no offsets to regain that 20 points across any of the hitting combinations. So it just came down to the haves and have-nots as far as Burns shares yesterday. Sandy could absolutely do that here. That's why I want to have some of them, but I'm not going to get overinvested against the Dodgers, not with his struggles, not with his inconsistency. Overall, 20.8% strikeouts. The hard hits, the premium contact is fine. The barrels are fine. The home runs are fine. Dodgers could certainly find some against him. Will Smith is not a catcher on FanDuel, I know, don't worry. Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Will Smith, Max Muncy, JD Martinez. Any one of those guys, any five of those guys in combination with one another, or any five of those guys in combination with Peralta, Hayward, or Outman from the bottom of the lineup makes you a very good Dodgers stack. Miguel Rojas, if he's in the lineup instead of Amed Rosario, is a much more limited player, 58 WRC plus on the season and 314 opportunities. I greatly prefer the Rosario play if he's in there. But I really like the three cheap lefties as usual in the outfield. Decent ability to put bat on ball, good home run output, good home runs and steals output from James Outman, 118 WRC plus for him on the season. Hayward, a 117 WRC plus with 11 homers and only 271 plate appearances. They're very good cheap lefties to work into the outfield around the core of talent, which is Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Will Smith, Max Muncy, and JD Martinez. Dodgers are super playable even against Sandy Alcantara. My hope is they go a little bit under-owned, but that said, they're going to be a pretty pricey option. They're fourth overall even against Sandy by collective fantasy point projections, but they dropped to 12th by home runs, 12th for FanDuel value points per dollar, 10th for DK points per dollar. So some of the guys down toward the bottom help with the points per dollar. Obviously, the guys up top are very difficult to get to in a somewhat limiting matchup against Alcantara. So it might be not stay away, but it might be limiting. Marlins side going up against Gonsolin. Middling projection for Gonsolin on that value plateau, 8,000 on both sites. I think he's a playable part, but kind of like Lugo, I don't know how much I'm going to get to, just given the wide spread of options. If he gains any popularity at all, it'll probably take him mostly off the board for me. 19.4% strikeouts, 3.39% home runs, 10.3% barrels, 41.4% hard hits, a 5.06 xFIP hiding underneath the okay 4.24 ERA in his 19 starts, 99 and 2/3 innings. I think he's pushing a little bit of quality in the Marlins direction. It's not great, but there's a little bit of power here. 8.62 for Soler. Obviously, he can go deep against anybody. 30 home runs on the season, a 259 ISO. We've got a 6.83 to work with on Jazz Chisholm, a 4.30 on Josh Bell, who's up to 16 home runs, a 105 WRC plus now that he's in Miami. He escaped that awful Cleveland situation. Jake Berger escaped the awful Chicago situation. 26 home runs. Most of those did come in Chicago. Sitting on a 119 WRC plus, though, and obviously all the power in the world, 7.93 in the home run model, 18.2% barrels, 50% hard hits for a very cheap third baseman going up against Tony Gonsolin. I think you can get to some Marlins here. They grade out as a lowish end opportunity, 17th out of 26 teams, 18th by home runs, 11th by FanDuel points per dollar, 16th by DK points per dollar with a little bit higher prices around Soler, around Luis Arias, Josh Chisholm, but there's a lot of good bats, even down toward the bottom. If it's this configuration, I don't love these two options, but Brian De La Cruz and Jesus Sanchez, very playable parts for a little bit of young power. 260, 307, 427 with a 168 and a 100 WRC plus, 16 home runs and 485 plate appearances for De La Cruz. And then Sanchez, 10 home runs and a 199 ISO and only 280 plate appearances. I would have liked to have seen what he would have put up if he hadn't gotten derailed by losing, basically half his plate appearances to this point with that injury. Seems like he was on his way to a decent little breakout year with the lefty power bat. 11.4% barrels, 48.1% hard hits. Sneaky home run potential around Jesus Sanchez if he's in the lineup today. Dodgers bats, Sandy Alcantara. Marlins bats, minor shares of Tony Gonsolin. All of those are like middling kind of options, though. I'm not going to get overexposed to any one corner of this game, but I'll probably have little parts of all four corners. In a way, given their cheap pricing and the better matchup, I kind of like the Marlins bats a little bit more for our purposes, for DFS purposes. But I can't rank them ahead of all the superstar talent on the Dodgers side of things. Even with Sandy on the mound on the other side, I think that would be incorrect. A real, and I mean real quick look at the pitching board because I got to get some lineups built. Ignore the two guys at the top who are now not on either slate. Spencer Strider with a bullet, top of the board. Total faith in the play against that San Francisco lineup that could push a little bit of additional strikeout upside his way. Love the Pablo Lopez spot. The prices are correct. He is a very good strikeout option, very good option on both sites, even with some popularity. I feel like he's going to be pushing a ton of popularity. I think somebody said it was like 30% earlier. I just don't care. I think it's a great option. I'm going to be around the field. I might undercut it slightly to just gain shares of guys like Kyle Woodruff, falling apart. Kyle Gibson, Brandon Woodruff, Michael Lorenzen. Then we get to like the mix and match guys. The cutoff point for like the higher quality options, I think, is probably around that Lorenzen spot. And then these guys are more of a mixed bag. This is like the plateau of guys that I was saying. There's a lot of guys that look pretty similar. Obviously, Sandy Alcantara's got a higher ceiling than anybody from Lorenzen down. I think that should be clear, even against the Dodgers. That's why he costs what he costs. But like Lugo against that Diamondbacks team, potentially limited by their low strikeouts, but I think there's enough quality there, particularly on DK, where you can roster a few shares. But Bayo looks essentially the same against the Yankees. Bryce Miller looks essentially the same against the Astros. Thompson for the super cheap dart throw pricing, particularly on DK at 56, where you don't need that sixth inning, I think might have a little bit of sneaky strikeout upside against the Mets. Heaney on the right night could shut down the Brewers completely and rack up a big strikeout total. JP France, I think, is a lower end option, but he projects out okay. Other sites haven't projected even better. Going up against the high strikeout Mariners, there's a little bit there. Gonsolin I don't love, but going up against the Marlins, there's enough there on the right night. Alex Cobb even. Cobb is my cut point. I probably won't end up there with all the depth available, but given that he's cheaper than most of these other guys, I might have a few Alex Cobb shares. I'm praying for clean innings, that he finds 2 or 3 bonus strikeouts, that he pitches a complete game and keeps Atlanta off the home run board. That's really the play you're making with Alex Cobb shares. It's not pretty, but he's a decent strikeout pitcher, very capable veteran righty who does check home run power very, very effectively. Adone, Jackson, Lucchesi, Kopech, Medina, Anderson, Fat, Erasmo, Johnny Brito, Peter Lambert. No, thank you. Take bats against those pitchers. Guys, I'm going to punch out. Thank you so much for hanging out with me through all this stuff, listening to me talk, tolerating the bumps getting the sheet together and that we didn't even end up needing at the beginning of the show. Wish we could have skipped that 5 minutes and I could have him back now. Larry C's home run pick is Soto. Mine was Gunnar Henderson. Gundacker's in the chat. Speaking of guns, what's up, Gun? I got to catch up with you, pal. I know I said I would do that. I will do that. I'll try and message you over the weekend and we'll catch up and connect, see if we can figure some stuff out for the next few weeks. With that, guys, let me punch out of here and get some lineups built. Go get them tonight. Good luck out there. Somebody go win something. Thank you. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe. You guys rock. I appreciate it. I'll see you later.